Summon Sign is brought to you by you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 62 of Summon Sign, Last Stand Media's weekly in-depth game discussion podcast. I'm your host, as always, Brad Ellison. Joining me, I have two lovely gentlemen. First, we're going to start with Mr. Lord Cognito. How are you, my friend?
I am doing good with Summon Sign. I'm back. I'm amongst good company. This is fun, man. I'm excited. It's been a while. We got stuff to talk about, man. But how you been?
Good, dude. I'm going to ask you a question, but first, let's get to our other guest, Mr. Rick Hoeg. Hoeg, good to see you, man.
It's good to see you, Brad. I'm excited to talk about video games and not legalese or celebrity trials. So I'm ready to go.
Wait, celebrity trials? Is there a hot celebrity trial right now?
I have been covering at length the Blake Lively versus Justin Baldoni fight because that is media, that is public relations, that is stuff that I'm interested in my neck of the YouTube woods. So I've been covering it in my Hangouts and Headlines show where we talk about how media covers things. But my God, everybody's suing everybody. And not only are my listeners and viewers, I think, a little sick of it, I am also a little over it. And so we're going to be taking a break from that. I am eager to talk about video games over that right now.
Yeah, and you got some good stuff to talk about. But first, Cog, what's going on, man, with the Crocs? What's happening?
So this has been an ongoing battle with the Iron Lord community. I've slandered Crocs viciously over the years. I have said that they are the ugliest piece of footwear. I would never be caught dead in these things. And the community remembers. They remember. So what has happened is we are doing our Road to Tokyo fundraiser. So our dream of the Iron Lords is to get to Tokyo, to get to TGS. We've never done it before. We put it off for years and years and years. So in order for it to make it happen, we had to kind of make sacrifices. You know, PAX. We always go to PAX. We always go to like Summer Games Festival when I ran into you.
Yep.
Brad. So like these are the things we always do. We like, and Solve is like, because Solve's the Iron Bank. He's the fiscally responsible one of the group, as Hoeg knows, as you know, with LLC stuff. And it was just like, okay, we have to bear down if we're going to do it. We lifted the expenses. So the community is like, no, we're getting you guys there, but you're going to suffer. And we're going to make you do things that you hate. So they're called the Road to Tokyo challenges. So one of them was Cog has to wear Crocs. And King, being who he is, threw a lot of sauce on the bet. Not only do I have to wear Crocs, we're going to wear Crocs while I watch Captain America Brave New World. He's going to get me the most outlandish Crocs to wear. And then I have to do foolishness, make a buffoon of myself while wearing the Crocs to the movie theater to show everyone I've honored the bet.
My goodness.
Yeah, so it was a public humiliation ritual with Crocs as happened with me at this movie theater. Look, I will say this, for the people who are the Croc fans, I will give you guys this. As much as I've slandered these things, I think they look like hippopotamuses
yeah.
Remember Hungry Hungry Hippo? You remember that toy? It reminds me of that. I will say, after wearing them, they are very comfortable. I understand why people wear them from a orthopedic and a comfort standpoint. I get it. I just don't want to ever be caught dead in those things again.
Believe me, I'm in no position to judge anybody's footwear. I have been wearing Kizik's since I was in the hospital. So that is all I wear now. They're the ones that you don't have to kind of like stretch to get your feet into. And they're great. I love them. But yeah, they were hospital wear first and foremost, and now I just kept with them.
Yeah, a lot of nurses, people swear by Crocs, and again, people on their feet all day, like people love these things. So I get it now, Brad. But yeah, they're disgusting.
I'm with you, Cog. I think they're hideous.
Thank you.
And I never want to buy them ever. But I suppose I understand why some
had me
wear them.
Wear, Brad. Look at
Oh
this.
my God.
Look at this. This is
horrible.
a travesty.
Those are kid shoes. Those are for like 5-year-olds.
These look like clown shoes. like you know when the clowns come out.
Yeah.
My issue is I just wish the circumference was a little more sleek. Why does it have to look like this? Can't we have a little fashion sense? But I will admit they are comfortable.
Yeah, that's an ugly ass shoe. Good Lord.
I agree. I'm with you, Brad. Brad, I'm with you, bro.
Good Lord. I hope I never have to wear them, but who knows?
Don't lose anything to your community. You'll be fine.
Yeah. Well, it's just like you see some guy that's like 40 walking around just like at the mall and just like, what are you doing, man? What are you doing?
Bro.
What are you doing? Just get some nice, like, comfortable walking shoes instead.
It's the giblets and stuff that they try to throw these extra things on them. And I'm like...
Yeah. Bedazzle them or whatever, or like got flare all over them. Yeah, it's absurd.
What are we doing? Where was society going wrong, Brad?
There's so many nice shoes out there, guys.
What's our segment again? What's our segment? We
sort it out.
Yeah, I'm already giving.
Yeah,
that's
sort
my
it out to Crocs.
For the jump.
Yeah, sort it out to Crocs, big time.
Exactly.
Good Lord. All right, guys. Before we get in the show, hey everybody, please check us out on patreon.com/laststatement if you'd like to support us and get early access to the shows, as well as all of our other shows, including Defining Duke, our Xbox podcast, which Cog is on as a co-host. Always a fun listen. I love that show. It's good stuff. You and Maddie have great chemistry.
Much love. It's always fun.
Also, leave us a nice rating on your podcast service of choice or YouTube, thumbs up, all that good stuff. Help us grow. Pretty much all of our podcasts are in the top 40 now. For gaming podcasts, which is great.
Very impressive. Brad, yeah. I'm seeing you outside, man. So inside and punching up now the whole, bro. You're killing it, man. You're killing it. I love to see it.
We're trying to boost those punching up numbers. So please support us over there too if you want to hear Gene and Micah be unhinged as possible every single week. So
I can only imagine it becoming more unhinged as we approach Switch 2.
Oh yeah, it's gotten ugly already, Hoeg. It's gonna get real ugly with those two. Those two perverts.
Oh, yeah, those two. I can only imagine what you got to deal with as a
host. Also, if you want some merch, please check out our merch at laststandmedia.store. We got some stickers. My favorite sticker, of course, the Smug Maddie Xbox one.
It's the best.
The best one.
It's the best.
It is like we have this kind of like the Smug Maddie face in our Discord, and it's by far the most used emote from everybody. It's just perfect. I love it. It's so good. All right, guys, we got some warm-up questions from the audience before we talk about what we're playing. This is from Justin 24-hour, Balls Deep Brad, Hung Loose Hoeg, and Cog. Wow. What's your favorite genre and why? Before you answer that reminds me, Micah's name on stuff like Reddit and Twitch, her name is Cockring King. That's the kind of stuff I'm telling you I'm dealing with on Punching Up, so be aware.
God bless your soul.
What a world.
Yeah. All right, guys. Favorite genre and why?
Well, I think this is pretty easy for me. It's going to be Japanese role-playing games. Mm-hmm. I really came of my video gaming age with Final Fantasy. I think I've talked about that in this space and others. And that's continued to be my favorite genre. I like storytelling. That's one of the things I really like about video games overall. And that's where I find the stories that connect the most with me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. That's good with Hoeg. It's tough. I kind of evolved. I went from like action adventure to fighting for a bit. And I will say now it's probably turn-based, tactical turn-based. I think of the XCOM series. I think.
Yeah.
Like I
Night Sons and stuff. Yeah.
Oh, exactly. Like all that stuff where I get to plan and strategize, and it's on a turn-based level. Even if it's a JRPG or whatever, or like a Midnight Suns or an XCOM, I love the thought process and the strategy. Mm-hmm. Now it's funny, it's not RTS as much, but specifically turn-based strategy. I love that stuff. If you give me a good turn, and I think that's why I fell so in love with me and Hoeg. We did with Colin. We did the Kunitagami spoiler that because at least part of it had that tactical aspect of turn-based during the day-night cycle. And I just thought that was so cool. Yeah. So you throw turn-based on something that you got my attention. I think that's where I've been gravitating towards lately.
Yeah. Did you ever play? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, not at all. Thinking through things is an important aspect of the fun of those types of games. It's one of the reasons why when I get into fights with people, which I don't often do, online about like the direction of a Final Fantasy and whether or not it can move into an action framework over turn-based. To me, it's not this kind of rote, I like it was when I was a kid. It's that turn-based role-playing presents a different kind of feeling in one's brain to dodging and weaving and hitting things with a sword. It's not that can't be cool. I love Final Fantasy 16, but it distinctly doesn't feel the same way as other Final Fantasies do because it is that action approach. And if Square wants to go that direction, that's great. That's fine. That's their company. It's their brand. But I'm always going to be in favor of the battle systems that give you that little bit of thought process, that little bit of strategy in my JRPGs. It's one of the reasons I'm so excited about Expedition 33.
Oh, yes. Yeah. And to add on to what you're saying, for me, also classes, very distinct classes and the ability to manipulate that. Also, like, I like games that have you have the regular gameplay and then you also have like a strategy layer outside of that. Yeah. I love that type of stuff as well as manipulating. So yeah, I'm with you. Brad, you were going to add on in reference to that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, like tactics games, did you ever try like Final Fantasy Tactics or stuff like that?
Yes. Addict is, he's like, I can't wait because the rumors are that maybe that it might come back in some form of a remaster.
Right.
And it's been so long. And I only tried them back in the day, but I never really like finished one. So yeah, I would love a good remaster and then dive into that because he swears by those.
Oh yeah. Final Fantasy Tactics is a crazy story. If you're at all interested in storytelling, it's got a crazy story.
It sure is.
Definitely.
For me, kind of like Hoeg, Japanese role-playing games are kind of my favorite thing. I like a lot of things Hoeg does. The story particularly was a standout for me when I was younger. I don't know, but it's tough because I like so many things, as well as all of you guys do. So it's tough. I don't know. It's like hard for me. It's like, would you count Elden Ring or whatever as a Japanese role-playing game? It's like, technically it is, I guess, but it's not what people think about in the traditional terms, maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I do try to clarify that when I say Japanese role-playing game or JRPG, I'm speaking of, in specifics, the Dragon Quest Final Fantasy branch of game development, and not just a role-playing game or something with a role that was made by Japanese developers, because that captures the FromSoft games, and that's not the same type of feel. I still like those. I still play them, not as much as some others do. But what I'm really talking about is that melodramatic storyline with turn-based strategy for the most part, in a role-playing environment with set characters that don't have kind of the Western open-ended narratives. And that's what I love the most. But to align myself with Cognito and with you, I also like, and I almost said as my choice here for favorite genre, 4X, right? It's a different kind of strategy that's PC primarily, but when we talk about games like Civilization or Galactic Empires or any of a number of other 4X type games, I really enjoy that kind of building of an empire, figuring out whether you're going to be diplomatic with others or go to war with them, and engaging in these long form, taking up the complete night gameplay sessions with games like that. Now, they don't tend to have stories and they don't tend to have endings. So one of the things I try to avoid doing is playing them too much, because they are very much the forever type of game where if you just want to sit down and play Civilization for a week, you can, but you're not going to move forward with anything else, whether that's work or other games that you mean to play. And so I have to be careful with those games, but they are another fan favorite of mine.
Nice.
All right, guys. This is from Huge Load. Brad, did our beloved In-N-Out's announcement last week that they are closing their HQ in Irvine and moving to Tennessee hit close to home? Not to get political, but it seems like from a practical standpoint, the snowball of business fleeing is now turning into an avalanche. Any growing consideration for you to relocating? I still miss the beach, but I wouldn't move back. Cheers. Okay, so I've known that In-N-Out was leaving Irvine, which is where I'm from. I've known that. But what's funny about it is they are moving to Tennessee. I think they're moving to Franklin, Tennessee, which is where my brother lives. So they're kind of still hitting home for me. So that's nice, but I am sad to see them go. They'll always be a California establishment for me. But share the wealth, man. I'm okay with that. You got to share the wealth.
Got to share. Yeah, in and out, man. I think I did eventually try it when I went out there. It was one of the things when I used to go to E3 and they were like, you have to try it in and out. You have to try.
People hype it up too much. It's great and I really like it, but I think people just get like a little too crazy and they get these extremely high expectations in their mind. And they're just like, it was okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
I remember that.
Yeah. It's like, all right, guys, just relax. It's really great for the price. I'll say that.
That's true for everything, though, right? Like, disappointment is a function of expectation. And when you hear people are disappointed about something, a lot of the times it's because they hyped it up themselves. They were hyped up on it from others. And that can be with in and out. That can be with your favorite movie or video game. That just happens. When things get overly hyped, you're more likely to be disappointed. That doesn't mean don't hype. Enjoy some of that excitement. But it does mean that you run that risk. You're a little bit more vulnerable to it not meeting those expectations.
Yeah. In terms of me relocating, no plans at the moment. If something happened or something came up, sure, maybe I would. But for right now, I'm fine where I'm at. So not moving quite yet, but we'll see what happens in the future. All right, guys, time to talk about video games. And first, we're going to start with what I've been playing, which is Monster Hunter Wilds. It's finally here. Humongous release I saw on PC or Steam at least. I think it was 1.3 million players right now, or was at the peak playing. That's an insane number. So congrats, Capcom. But before I get into talking about everything I've played, I'm curious, are either of you fans of Monster Hunter, or have you played it at all?
I have played Monster Hunter from time to time. I would consider myself to be maybe a mid-range or casual Monster Hunter fan, insofar as I have gotten a couple dozen hours into various iterations of the series, but I don't wait for the next one to come out. And I don't get into that hundreds or thousands of hours kind of area. I'm not fighting G rank anything. I never have. But I have played a significant amount of World and Rise most recently.
Yeah. I am not a Monster Hunter guy. However, I got to shout out Ibatis. He's the Monster Hunter guy. And he was like, give, I believe, Worlds a shot. I think that was like the first one. And I'm like, okay, I get the loop now. It's, you're building up your resources, you start the hunt. And I'm like, okay, I get it. It's just one of those things that I don't see myself long-term playing, but I get the addictive loop of it. And I'm like, I see why people like it now. Yeah,
I think Worlds is definitely the one that got a lot of people in. Yeah. It's the one that finally clicked with me because I tried Monster Hunter before and I was like, I don't really know. Yeah. And it bummed me out because I love Capcom, but it's just like,
Yeah. Cause I think it was a Switch one that I tried before
Rise.
Worlds. With that, there it is. Yeah, and I was like, same thing. But Worlds did click better for me, and I understood, okay, I get the assignment now.
Yeah. Mm. But anyways, this is kind of the successor to Worlds, I would say. Rise is great, and I love Rise, but it was scaled back in some ways. So this is kind of like the next evolution of the grand scale Monster Hunter, I should say. And there's a lot to get in with Monster Hunter. If you guys are unfamiliar, it is basically a game where you just hunt giant monsters. That's the whole point of the game. It is.
There is a title for that.
Yeah. So you're not like killing like a lot of trash mobs or stuff like that, or going through dungeons and everything like that. It's very much like a boss kind of rush game only. There's some stuff to do on the side, but that's the main focus of the game. So I'll just talk about some of the new stuff that's in Wilds compared to the older ones that I've noticed. And I'm still going through the game. I still have a ways to go, I believe. I think I've played maybe 10 hours right now, maybe a little more. So I kind of have a grasp of it, but there's a lot more to unfold for me to figure out and stuff like that. So I'm still learning a bunch of that stuff. But one of the big new things is the world is kind of like that you're in is much more seamless than the older games. Usually how it worked was you would be at a camp, and you would accept your hunt, then you would go through a loading screen and you would be in a outdoor hub environment. Now, things are still divided up into hubs, but from your camp to going out there on the field, actually now it's completely seamless. So they've gotten rid of a lot of the loading screens and helped make it feel much more immersive, which I appreciate. It's still good. There's different zones, of course. There's like the desert zone, the jungle zone, the rock zone, whatever, and you have to load between those, but it's all very fast, which is fine. But it just adds a nice level of immersion that I do appreciate. One thing that kind of controversial, I guess, not the idea of it, but the execution is the story. There's a lot more story this time around, a lot more. lot of cutscenes and all that kind of stuff. And I appreciate that. I just think the story itself is just kind of boring. I'm not that interested in the characters really or what's going on that much. It's nice to get context and all that kind of stuff, but I find myself wanting to skip dialogue pretty often. I'm like, all right, let me just, get back to it, kind of hunt thing like that. Yeah. Maybe it's just my little rat brain trained to be like hunt, and just like want to keep going. But there is a lot of story this time around.
Well, I want to back you up on this.
Yeah.
Because I've already said one of my favorite genres is based on storytelling. And you would think that this would work for me because it clearly is emphasizing storytelling in this one, Wilds. But I agree with you, which is to say the core competency, to bring boardroom speak into it for a minute, of the Monster Hunter series is the gameplay of hunting monsters. It's no surprise from the title. And this is the kind of story that Capcom sometimes tells that I just don't like. It doesn't meet me where I live. I don't like the characters. I don't really like the aesthetics. It's kind of this very superficial, these are the people doing something like trying to find a kid his home while you're also hunting monsters. That reminds me of like the 360 era of Capcom. This really reminds me of Lost Planet, that kind of game, where it's a story that I don't care as much about as doing whatever it is the game is doing. And so this is where I find myself in most close alignment with those that yell at me for liking JRPGs as much as I do, which is you should care more about gameplay, Hoeg, and not story. And it's like, no, they tell fantastic stories. They get me emotionally invested in characters. This is one of those where it seems like Capcom tried to have that as the onboarding process for people that maybe aren't familiar with Monster Hunter or want to have that story as their guidepost. And I find myself resentful of it in this game. I have not had the best time in the early hours of this. I've probably played it for 4 to 6 at this point, but I immediately didn't like the opening area. It was just more drab than World was. And I immediately didn't like a lot of the way the story was told and the aesthetics of that story, which reminded me again of that kind of super high resolution 360 graphics. And so I was expecting to be wowed. And again, that's expectations that function to create that disappointment. But I remember when I played World for the first time that I was like, wow, this is what they were aimed at for Monster Hunter for a decade now. And it was really exciting to be in that woods hunting those monsters. And this is the opposite of that to me. And instead of hunting monsters, I've been spending a lot of time riding on a monster, listening to people talk at me for a story I don't care about. So it's been a more negative experience than I would have liked. And I'm going to continue to try it because I know this is a popular series. I know there's fun to be had there. I've had some fun clubbing a giant monster frog in the head with a hammer, but not as much as I would have liked at this point.
I will say, at least from a gameplay perspective, it gets better as it goes on.
I believe it.
Narratively, I think it's kind of a miss. I agree with you. I think there's too much going on, honestly. I understand why they did it, to try to maybe hook new players in and ease them into the world. And I'm very curious to hear about like a brand new player's perspective on that kind of stuff. But so far, I don't care about the narrative at all. And I just want them to get to the next hunt most of the time. But once again, that's maybe just because I've played many Monster Hunter games. I don't really know. I'll see how I feel as it progresses, though, like that. But yeah, so one of the other new mechanics that I think is very interesting is, of course, you're beating up monsters the whole time. There's a new mechanic called wounds, which I think is kind of interesting. So by dealing damage to a monster now, at a spot, if you do enough damage, it can open up like a vulnerable area or a wound, I should say, and you can kind of see it on them. One good thing they've made in the game is you can aim kind of now where you're swinging a lot easier. That is something if you've played Monster Hunter games, like someone wrote in about this earlier or later, but it's very easy to miss monsters when you're just learning, especially with certain weapons. Like if you're using a greatsword, you just a huge swing and just whiff, and like that's just part of it. And that's part of the game is learning when to attack and stuff like that. But now they've made it so you can kind of rotate yourself a little bit to help with that. So that's really cool, and I like that. But anyways, with the wound things, it's kind of like a light up thing you can see on them, and you'd hit it, and does like a critical attack on them, almost like that, like a huge damage. And it's really important in Monster Hunter to have the feel of impact, and it definitely feels good when you like nail one of these things on them. You see all the numbers go up real fast, like that's the dopamine hit you love.
Yeah, it has like a ding sound effect that comes with it too, doesn't it?
Yes, it's very good. And the monsters like fall over and stuff like that, of course, and they're waggling in agony, all that stuff. So it's all really fun. So I really appreciate all that kind of stuff. One thing I'm disappointed with so far is, so a lot of the past Monster Hunter games is food's important, and food is still important in this game. It's just handled a different way. And like in the old games, you would go to like a food stand or whatever. The palicos, the little kitties making food for you. They don't make food for you anymore. I'm really bummed out about them. And they used to have really cool animations for making food, and it always looked so good. But now your character just kind of makes food for himself, which is interesting. You can kind of just do it at your camp and on the fly, which adds a little more flexibility. But I really miss that sense of going up to a spot, especially when you're with your crew hunting and everyone eating a meal at the same time. I do miss that camaraderie and just seeing the little palicos make food. So I really hope they bring that back in the future. But one criticism I kind of have right now, and this is not a problem for everybody. I definitely think the game is a little too easy right now, I think, as I'm going through it. That's
what I'm hearing online. That's kind of like the vibe. I'm curious. I wanted to hear what you say
about
this. Yeah.
Like, I haven't gone through everything yet, so I'm sure things could change like that. But just going through it right now, where I'm at, I haven't fainted once. I haven't gotten knocked over once and stuff like that. So I'm just kind of surprised. But at the same time, I'm like, I guess they're just trying to get in new players and make it more accessible, which I totally understand. So I hope later in the end game, it gets more challenging. That's what I'm hoping. And they always do a ton of post content. They're going to do expansion, of course, probably in a year. So we'll have all that kind of stuff. But I just hope the difficulty picks up a little more. Other than that, there's some nice little changes with some of the weapons, like the longsword I use. They've added some new mechanics. All the weapons get a little tweaks. There's no new weapon, but they always tweak them a little bit, and they feel kind of different in a lot of ways. And they're really fun to use, really awesome. A lot of the monsters are super cool. There was like this just giant like squid octopus monster who's like had a bunch of tentacles spinning around, and he would light himself on fire, which is really fun. He can like chop off individual limbs of his tentacles, so that was really cool. But so far, overall, I'm having a good time. I've gotten to play with like Dustin and Ben, some of our other friends, so it's been fun hunting with the crew. We have a Last Stand kind of like squad, so you guys can join that if you want. Dustin posted
I see Dustin posted, yeah,
Twitter if you want to hunt with us, so that's there. Playing with hunters is easier than I would say than World, a little less clunky. The game is still kind of confusing. Like the UI, I think, is not great in the game so far like that, and how everything's handled in the systems. It's all not handled very well still. They still haven't cracked that nut yet where it feels like very intuitive. I still think they have some work to do there. And Monster Hunter is a very hardcore game. Like when you're playing the game, like it feels like I'm playing a fighting game when you're learning a weapon almost with how much depth there is. Maybe not quite that much, but that's what I compare it to.
They definitely
like really
have
getting
combos.
the nuance. Yeah, combos, learning the nuance of moves and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's important. But it's very satisfying, like a fighting game, when you learn to pull off stuff really well and you do it in battle. It's really good. There's some really cool environmental stuff going on in the environments now. Like they brought back destruction, like environmental destruction, like you can drop like stalactites on the ceiling on monsters again like that. I was fighting in like a dune. Then there was like a quicksand or like sand whirlpool going on, monsters getting dragged in it. It's very cool. So I love all the environmental stuff like that. That's all awesome. You have mounts again. They're not the palamutes, not the dogs anymore. You got like little bird chocobo things now this time around instead. I miss the dogs though. They were cool. And it's interesting because the game kind of just autopilots now when you get on a mount. It like you don't even like have to control it. It just goes right to it right away, which is interesting. I'm kind of torn on it because I see why they do it, because some people could get lost, but at the same time, I feel like I'm less invested in exploring an area or paying attention because it's just autopilot, so I'm not actually thinking about where I'm going as much. So I don't know how I feel about it.
You have to turn off the autopilot if you want to explore, but I do think it allows them to have some crazy geography. Like, yes, I knocked the game a little bit earlier. I want to give it some positives here. I did notice that the autopilot on your secrets, or sacreds, however you want to pronounce these dinosaur bird dog things, is allowing them to have you jump between things, to have the mount take over for some really elaborate set pieces that would be much more difficult to navigate yourself. So I do like that.
I think that would have been fine to do autopilot for that kind of stuff. But I'm just like, I wonder why they decided to do that. I'm still torn on it. I don't quite know how I feel about it yet, but I guess I'll see as it goes on more. Maybe I won't even care down the line.
Well, it's funny. We're going to talk about Pirate Yakuza in a bit, but it does remind me of setting a point on your map and then just telling your little segue to go wherever it is that you want to go.
Well, in this, you don't even have to set a point. It just does it all. It just follows, like, for instance, the monster will just follow it immediately. You don't even have to set a point. So it's all very streamlined, I guess. But PC, I'm playing on PC, and it's got problems. I personally haven't had a ton of problems. I know a lot of people have had a lot more problems, like really bad frame. It's just poorly optimized. Some people were having crashes, so another Capcom port, PC port that's not great. I'm used to it, and I expect that kind of now, but sad. But they got to work on that. You got to improve that kind of thing. So get on that, Capcom. That's probably a big criticism for a lot of people. Is just, the PC stuff like that. I have no idea what console's like. I'm not sure. So hard for me to say from that front.
I'm playing it on the Pro, so I can speak to that. I think it's good. It is not as strong a visual holistically as some of the other Pro games that I have played.
Sure.
So it is a little bit less impressive on that score, but it doesn't have frame rate drops that I can tell. I'm sure that Digital Foundry or whoever can go in and say it's only running 2 frames less than I would want it to be perfectly or something like that, but I can't see it while I play, so that's good enough for me when I play these things. So I think the Pro performance is solid. I just wish that the aesthetics came together a little bit better, but that's art as much as technology.
Yeah. I think from like a technical aspect, there's a lot of impressive stuff, especially when when you're fighting with 4 people out on the world and like another monster comes in, then they start fighting each other and you're fighting them while they're fighting this monster. There's like a lot of crazy and like lightning effects going on. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on. And that's all really impressive.
I do like that dynamism. Yeah, I was fighting a monster and like another pack of smaller monsters came and started eating him while he was on the ground. And like that dynamism is fun.
Yeah, it's really cool. But overall, I'm still enjoying the game. Definitely looking forward to playing more. I've been having fun playing it. Just got some gripes right now, but I'll see how I feel once I finish the campaign. But there's going to be a whole lot of post-game to do. There always is.
And that's why I don't hold the campaign against it so much. Right. I just want to get through it. But like to me, that the game on this particular type of game is after you're going to get done with your story. So I wish you hadn't forced me down so much of it.
Right. Totally.
I do think it's worth exploring if you're at all interested in it. And one thing that I haven't mentioned yet is I do like the second weapon. I think that's new for this game.
Yeah.
You can correct
me if have 2 weapons up.
But that does open up the space of things that you can do even by yourself without a group to have a second weapon. So you can have a hammer and a bow if you feel like it. Get crazy. Learn 2 weapons at once if you don't think the game is complicated enough.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of flexibility, so it's really cool. I like it from that standpoint for sure. Let's see here. Guy Kotaku wrote and said, "Dear Brad and Summon Guest, the new Monster Hunter has launched with raving reviews and a record audience. However, as someone who has never played any Monster Hunter game before, all I saw when I clicked videos of gameplay was a lot of whiffs with players completely missing their target. Looks pretty frustrating to me. Could you share some opinion or recommendation on the game specifically tailored to someone who's a complete Monster Hunter neophyte?" I don't know how you say that. Neophyte? Neophyte, that's it. I saw Neo and I thought Neopets, but it's that's like immediately what went into my mind.
Yeah.
Mostly plays FromSoft games, in particular loved Bloodborne and Sekiro, and hated the multi-million seller Witcher 3 due to its boring combat. I don't know why there's a question mark there. Thank you for the deep dive on so many varied games every week. What a phenomenal addition to Last Stand, not LSM. Let's see here. So, some opinion or recommendations for a newcomer, particularly someone that likes Souls. So, it sounds like immediately...
My take on this is you want a fast-acting weapon that you're going to be focused on dodges with.
Sure.
But that's my feeling on how I play the Souls games and whatnot. But I think if you're worried about whiffing, one, that's going to happen. I look like an idiot most of the time when I play this game. But if you pick something like the double swords, you're going to get a lot of hits. You're not going to have as many misses because you're firing off 6 or 7 attacks in the same amount of time as it takes to swing the hammer once. And you're going to be doing a lot more dodging and dodge rolls that you're more expecting from your FromSoft background. That would be my guess as to what would work best.
Sure, yeah. Dual Blades is a really good call. Like Hoeg said, you're just going to miss sometimes. That's just the way it is. You can kind of lock on to the monsters, but it's more like a soft lock on, I would recommend when you're playing the game. But there is the new mechanic is when you hold L2 or whatever, you can kind of aim where you're swinging like that, so it can definitely help you line up attacks more. So I would say it's more forgiving than ever in Monster Hunter games, but it's a different pace than like a From Software game. It doesn't feel quite the same, so it definitely takes getting used to some of it. So I don't know. I would recommend checking it out. Now is like a good time, I guess, because everyone's playing it, but it is an investment. So I don't know. Maybe watch some more gameplay of it or something like that. More streams.
It's funny. He said he clicked on videos and saw whiffs. I was like, I don't think I'm broadcasting, but that's my experience. Maybe you clicked on me. I don't know.
That's me.
When you see some like good players play that game, which it's cool because like they really stand out. That skill ceiling is really there in this game. So if you watch someone really good, you're going to be like, whoa, I didn't even know you could do this kind of stuff in the game. So make sure to watch someone who's actually good also. If you're just watching a new streamer or something like that. All right. This is from Mike Yu. Hey, gang. Monster Hunter Wilds is upon us. And aside from a couple dozen hours in World while waiting for the game, this is my first Monster Hunter. I've seen a lot of complaints about the difficulty being too low, but as a newcomer to the series, it feels like the older games are difficult because they control like ass, not because they're actually challenging. I could barely make it through Worlds because of the clunky controls. Maybe a hot take, but I absolutely love this latest installment and the new direction for the series. Love to hear your thoughts. Yeah, I mean, I guess control has just gotten better over time in Monster Hunter games. They're definitely clunkier games, but you have to learn to work them. There's a steep learning curve and all that kind of stuff. So maybe if you're used to really fine and smooth controls, it'll be a turn off for you. There's definitely like a cadence to the movement in this game like that. I feel like it just takes getting some used to. What do you think, Hoeg?
Yeah, I think it's slower than you think, right? It can look like a character action game if you're watching those videos. And if you are watching somebody that's really good at them, it doesn't really play that way. And I do think that there's a certain built-in tolerance to these things. Like if you did come from software or something else that you really liked, you are already engaging with some difficult UI stuff that you're just not thinking about because it's nature to you. This has that same kind of thing. You're going to be futzing around with menus. You've got a lot of things to think about, whether it's your ranged weaponry or your food stocks or how you're dealing with potions. And they've streamlined that some. So you've got your main things that you can run off of your like compass rose quick action menu. But for the most part, you're still going to have to be going through that menu from time to time, even while you're fighting a giant dinosaur. And so that can come across as a little bit clunky. I think it's certainly smoother in Wilds, but you have to cross that threshold of even understanding what it is that you're meant to be doing and going through the menus to do that. To get to the place where you're really having a lot of fun. And I do think that's still a barrier. I do think that Capcom, if I had another frustration with this game, is that I do think some of it is kind of built around this notion that you already know how to play Monster Hunter. I know they have some tutorials. I know there is some effort to onboard certain concepts. But even when you first get into the item box and your item bag, it's just a bunch of icons and a bunch of stuff that says, yeah, you know how to use a barbecue. You know what you're doing because you've been here before. And we'll tell you, don't forget to make your food, don't forget to eat your meat, whatever it is. But we're not really going to tell you why or how to do it in so many words in this particular game. So I do think it takes a moment to get up to speed. And they haven't perfected that. They haven't gotten that onboarding process exactly right. But they are kind of trying to dance between two worlds by bringing on new people while still satisfying those that did play Monster Hunter for now a decade.
All right, this is from Macarbra. Hey, signers. After reading the good reviews and learning that they've made it more streamlined, I decided to buy Monster Hunter Wilds. Well, I'm 8 hours in, and I'm sad to say this is one of the very rare times I have buyer's remorse. I feel like the game is so difficult to navigate in every way. The menus are clumsy, gear stats, elemental type, and the weaknesses aren't explained. The different multiplayer options are confusing. It feels like I've been dropped into a save that's 38 hours deep. Even your damn chocobo has a mind of its own. Brad, as a Monster Hunter veteran, is it just me, or is even Monster Hunter Wilds not beginner friendly enough for newbies? So this is my kind of thing with Monster Hunter. I treat it like Path of Exile. Path of Exile, extremely deep game with lots of mechanics where I'm like, if you were brand new to it, I would take 20, 30 minutes and watch someone explain the basics to you in a YouTube video or something like that. I think that would go a long way. Because like Hoeg was saying, here's the barbecue spit and all that kind of stuff. It's like, you know how to use it. But it's like, I don't know how to use it. I don't know what this kind of stuff is. So take a little bit of effort, I would say. I think it's definitely worth it. You can get through it like all of us did at one point. You know, we just kind of learned as we went, but it can be an overwhelming game at one time. And I think they kind of ease you in some ways, but not good in some ways and bad in some other ways. Like, they definitely ease you into the world more and getting into hunts more this game. Like you're saying, Hoeg, maybe too much where it just kind of takes too long. But they have stuff in the game they tell you about, like the training range. I'd recommend going in there and just kind of swinging around. It shows you all your combos and stuff like that. Sort of really kind of learn all that kind of stuff. In terms of gear stats, you can look at, if you look at the menus, you can see what like specific things do like that. So make sure to really take a look at it. But yeah, there's a lot of information in this game, a lot to take in. My advice would be don't worry about a lot of it too much, especially because the game is fairly easy for the most part. My advice would be, hey, every time you hunt something, just try to make some armor from it and get your armor score, get your defense up. That's going to really help you for the first 10 hours or so like that. So don't worry too much, but
yeah,
my recommendation,
that's very much like a Diablo or a Path of Exile is you've got all this stuff that's built around a lot of difficult concepts that are mostly only going to come into play towards the end. Mm-hmm. And so if you can make the primary stat go up, you know you're going in the right direction. Right. And I do think for folks that have that initial buyer's remorse, and I have to tell you, I am pretty close to that. This was one of those where I bought the game, I turned it on. The very first time I started playing it last week, I said, oh, this feels bad. You ever buy something or you buy a movie, a television show, or video game, and you say, oh, no, that's not what I was expecting at all. And you say, oh, I probably shouldn't have spent that money. And I've come back the next couple of days and had a couple of better times with it. But it's still not at the level of positivity that I had expected going into this, remembering how I felt about World. And so I do agree that there are issues with the onboarding here of this game. But I also note that the fun is there, right? People are not just playing this game to own you, are not just playing this game to make you feel bad online. They did find the fun. There is fun to be had there. But it is going to be a little bit more clunky and a little bit more frictionful than I would like to start out with. So I do think it's there. But there is stuff to work through. And whether that's worked through with a 30-minute tutorial on YouTube or some other way, I can't tell you. But I do think it is there, even though I myself am a little resistant to it right now, sitting here. Mm-hmm.
And there's tons of information out there. There's tons of Monster Hunter experts out there. So if you have questions, just look something up. That'd be my advice. Don't be afraid to look outside. And I understand that could be frustrating because you're like, well, I don't want to do homework or anything like that. But I'm just saying, maybe if you're stumped or something like that, take a look.
I hate it. I hate the go look at the Wikipedia or wiki for this game kind of approach to strategizing or manual giving when we don't have manuals anymore. So I am very sympathetic to not wanting to do that. But this is the type of game where I completely back Brad up and say there are little nuances that maybe aren't even obvious based on the menus. I will also say, however, that you said that there aren't explanations for weaknesses and elemental types and gear stats. I think most of what you're looking for probably is in a nested menu. It is not the most intuitive menu system in the world. And if you do look at the corners of your screen, there are buttons that you can hit that will take you into more information that maybe you don't see initially. So there's stuff around the corners of this game, much of which I'm also going to agree with Brad on is probably not too important for the first 20 monster hunts or so. But it will be important eventually if you want to get into this deeply.
Yeah, just get gear that gets your armor up for a while. You'll probably be okay with just that, so don't worry about it.
I'm not supposed to pick my armor just based on how I look?
Oh, you can do that. You can do that pretty much for a long time.
Fashion game.
They give you that flexibility,
I look like a terrible frog monster. It's fine.
Oh, I looked hideous for so long. So long. I looked like crap. Cog, I assume you have no interest in playing.
Nope. But I love to hear it though, because the experience from hardcore Monster Hunter guys like yourselves and seeing the difference or the evolution of the series, right? And the vibe I'm getting is that onboarding still may be an issue for newer players, but like the game assumes you know who we are, right? And that's the vibe I'm getting, at least what you explained it. And there seems to be a depth of fun that's to be had. And when you explained it, Hoeg, it made me think about Destiny. Destiny's like that. They have all these systems, all these things. And I remember like newcomers being like, okay, you're just assuming I know all this stuff. And they would have to go watch a content creator or a video to kind of get that vibe of, okay, all these extra deeper mechanics that the game actually has. And that's the vibe I'm getting from what you guys are explaining.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're really trying. I don't want to take away from Capcom. They're really trying to bring people on board, but they are stuck between bringing people on board, and a lot of folks already know the basics here, so we don't want to waste your time. So I equate it to those 4X games like I was talking about earlier that have a button at the front that says, do you want tutorials for the whole game or do you want tutorials for just what's new in this edition? Wilds feels to me like we're mostly going to slow walk you through the stuff we added, but not through the stuff that already exists in Monster Hunter Land. And that can be a problem even for somebody like me who has that experience with World and Rise to say, well, I didn't play Rise 2 minutes ago, so I have to remind myself how a Monster Hunter game plays. And that was a little clunky for me.
Yeah, yeah, all fair. But yeah, I'll be playing more, so I'll report back to everybody when I know more time. Like Monster Hunter games, you kind of got to spend a lot of time to really see everything. So looking forward to playing more, though.
Nice.
Okay. Hoeg, Eternal Strands.
Yes.
I've been hearing about this game a little bit. I have no idea what it is, though.
You let me talk about Eternal Strands. I didn't know whether you'd already had this conversation. This was a game that came out, I think, at the end of January, I want to say. But it is one of my favorites of the year already. It is, to combine it with our earlier talk, essentially a game where you go and you hunt giant monsters, for the most part. But rather than be like Monster Hunter, this is essentially a take on kind of the Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom. Environmental magic can change things on a physics basis. So you can, say, use your ice spells to lock the giant monster's leg to the ground and then climb up the monster like Shadow of the Colossus and go figure out exactly how you want to beat this particular monster by taking parts off of it. But it's gorgeous. It is written really well. It's got a very kind of impactful story. It puts you in a place that it is established as being magical and a lost land kind of location in a way that I found to be very effective. And so this is one of those games that I think people should really try. It's from a very small studio, new, but with a lot of experience from places like BioWare in the past. And I didn't see it talked about enough, so I wanted to make sure I referenced it here.
Yeah, I'm just looking at a little bit of it, but it looks pretty cool.
Yeah, I like the art style.
Yeah.
The art style is great. I consider it kind of a high-res World of Warcraft, big pauldrons kind of art style.
Yeah.
And then it has like realistic elemental magic so that you can light fires and the fires will spread and you can ice over things and you can throw rocks with your kinetic energy balls and whatnot. And it's a lot of fun. I will say, compared to a Monster Hunter or a character action game, the actual combat is maybe a little bit looser than you would like in a perfect world. It's a little bit less precise than you would want. That's really not where it butters its bread. But if you are interested in traveling through a magic world with well-written characters and a physics-based combat system, I don't think there's really anything on the block like it.
So tell me, I guess, Hoeg, when you're playing, what's it like? Are you in a town you set out and do you maybe just hunt like one monster or like something like that?
So you are what they call in the game's lore in a weaver band. The weavers are essentially the magicians or the wizards. And you're essentially in something like a campsite. You've got a cart and a quartermaster. And you are what they call the point, which is the one that is set out to explore the various areas around your camp, collect crafting materials, bring them back, improve your armor, improve your weapons, and then go back out and ultimately fight big monsters to take their strands, eternal strands, and add their magic to your own, giving you new powers that you can add to your mantle and have different magical abilities that can allow you to progress. But I say it's fighting monsters. It's not like Monster Hunter insofar as it's just specific quests and hunts that you go out to get monsters. You're basically choosing your own destiny. You'll get side quests in these various areas, but it's one camp, and then you go out to various areas. You earn fast travel warp gates to go from your camp to specific areas in the world. And then while you explore the world, everybody in your camp, in your Weaver Band, is watching you through their magic tablets, and they talk to you about what you're experiencing out there, whether it's monsters and how to fight them, or a new area and what it represents in the lore of the land, whatever it might be. And so you have this kind of constant, at least light narrative throughout the entire experience. So it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of what I look for in a game, with graphics and aesthetics that I enjoy more than, honestly, a lot of bigger budget games than this one. This one was, like I said, a small first-time indie studio, and I think they did a really good job with the resources at their disposal.
Yeah, it looks really good. Love the art style.
Yeah. What are some of like the side objectives you're doing out in the world?
Yeah, so one of them is to open what they call the Loom Gates, which are those fast travel points, and people will ask you for that. Other people in your camp, like a BioWare game, but not quite as in-depth, will have various other personal reasons for wanting something out of this area that you're now exploring. You're exploring an area that has been cut off from the world for a half century for the first time, and so these people have certain historical things they're looking for, or certain questions they want answered about what happened here and why the world is the way it is. And so you'll have that as part of your list of things to go out and do while you are otherwise doing the core loop of collecting craft materials and basically engaging in a cozy game experience while you are in a combat and physics and monster hunting game at the same time. So you're going and getting those craft materials. Those craft materials can be used to enhance your armor. They also, in a really cool system, depending on what you use to craft your armor or weapons, change how they look. So you're going to be balancing what it is you want your armor or weapons to do with how you want them to ultimately look. What metal you use changes how it looks. What dyes you use might change how it looks for more of your leather apparel or what have you. And I think it's just really smartly done. And it's not something I've seen done before in these types of games. And I want to make sure people know about it.
How's the exploration? Is it mostly just kind of like a means to get to whatever your target is, or is there incentive to kind of go off and find things on your own?
There is incentive to go off and find things on your own. One of my favorite little bits here is, like, a lot of these games, they have a codex. So you get knowledge about these various areas, but you don't know everything when you first enter an area. So they have these points of interest and things that you can find in an area. And when you find enough of them, you can take them back to your lore master at camp, and they can come up with a codex entry for what it is that you're even exploring, as kind of a summary of everything that you've found around the area. So there are those things to find. There are also treasure chests and blueprints for new types of goods. So you can get a magical set of bow and arrow instead of your kind of mundane bow and arrow. And you can find those as part of your explorations around the area. And so there's just a lot to do in all of these things. They're kind of small hubs that you are exploring as you go further and further out from your camp and things get more dangerous. And then I think that's all I wanted to say on that, honestly. So
yeah. Well, let's talk about some of like the bosses you're fighting like that. Are they all pretty cool, unique? Do they stand out from each other?
They're all giant. Okay. If there is one thing that doesn't stand out, is that a lot of them are dragons. A lot of them are giant colossi type things, like literally the statue. And so they have different weapons that they can hold, different magic that they can perform. But there is that kind of similarity. You see some of that in the environments as well. It is a smaller team putting together a game like this.
Yeah.
And so there is some of that overlap. But I think for the most part, you're getting giant cartoon dragons to fight and jump on and use magic against. And I think it does really well with that. But yeah, I don't think that there's a ton. It's certainly nothing like Monster Hunter, where you've got however many 50 to 100 monsters that you're going to go wind up hunting of all different stripes. So
okay. Well, it sounds cool and it looks fun.
I highly recommend it. I think it's in Game Pass still.
Yeah, a lot of people are raving about it. I think Montes was playing this as well. I was mentioning again, he's really feeling good about it. I've heard a lot of positive things about Eternal Strands.
It's not a full price game. I think it's $40. And I couldn't recommend it more. It's one of my favorite games of the year. And so I wanted people to hear about it because I wasn't hearing about it enough.
I love that. I love that. Spread the word, baby. I love it.
Yes, I don't know that I could do for it what you did for Midnight Suns, Cog, but I'll put it out there, and you guys should play Eternal Strands. I think you'll come away quite happy.
Okay, cool. This is from JP. Hey, Summoners. Hoeg, how are you liking Eternal Strands? Aside from the combat, which looks incredibly fun, what other aspects of the game do you think are most executed the best? Are you excited for any of the future content that the developers have shared will be added later this year.
Yes. So this is, I think, yes to all these questions. I'll have to go through them.
Yes.
But one, I love it. I love Eternal Strands. You've already heard me say that. What do I think is executed the best? I honestly think it's the writing. I think it's the storytelling. I think the characters are immediately sympathetic, immediately people that you want to learn more about, and you get more of their background as you go through the game. And then even more than that, I think, unlike some games, and JRPGs are sometimes guilty of this game really has a strong inciting event. It has a strong kind of sense of why you should care about what's happening in it. And so from moment one, you're really invested in exploring this area that has been cut off from the world. Everybody in your team is excited about it, and they share with you why they're excited about it. That makes the player excited about it. I think they do a really good job of that with really strong voice acting. And I was really excited to be a part of that team exploring this area. So I think that's the best thing they do, is that writing and acting. Are you excited for any of the future content? I would say yes. I don't think they've shared the details so much, but they are doing partnerships with various interesting entities. I know Creative Business Unit, I might get their name wrong now, 3, that did Final Fantasy 16, they're partnering with for one of their upgrades. And they're also partnering with Grasshopper, I think.
Oh, really?
For one of their expansions, or not expansions too strong, for one of their future patches and content drops. And so I think that's a lot to be excited about. I don't know what that's going to look like in practice, so I don't get too hyped without details, but I am excited about them moving forward with this. I think Yellow Brick is the name of the studio that made this game, is one of those that is going to be on my radar for whatever they do next. Okay. This is a company that immediately became one of my favorites, and I am looking forward not just to Eternal Strands, but whatever it is that they focus on in the future. I believe, if I get my history right on this, that they were working on this game for 4 years or so. So we're probably a little while out from whatever the next thing might be, but I think this is a company to watch.
Was this, I'm sorry, did you say this is like old BioWare people and stuff like that?
I know that I'm going to get this wrong, I think, because I have so many names swirling around my head, but I believe Mr. Laidlaw is behind Yellow Brick.
Okay.
And he is the BioWare name I know the most from that. I think there are other people from Ubisoft that worked on the Immortals franchise, the Phoenix Rising game, which I also enjoyed. You see some of that DNA certainly in the Breath of the Wild approach to climbing on anything and stamina bars and whatnot. But there is a lot of industry experience at that company. It comes out as soon as you turn this game on that it is obviously made by professionals, not to take away from other indie developers, but sometimes you can feel the indiness. And this is one that was clearly made by people that had released a project before.
Okay. Nice. Very cool. Cog, any questions before we move on?
No, I'm glad he broke this down and got, put some spotlight on it. I've heard a lot of positive things. Just obviously my backlog's been crazy.
Yeah, but it's been a great first quarter.
Yeah, it's insane. It is insane. And I didn't even start with still got Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 to get done, which is another thing. But and I saw, Mike is like, hey, who's ready for that? And I'm like,
because we all have 100 hours left.
I'm not yet.
Like 20, 30 hours, and I felt like I didn't make a dent in that game. But no, this is something that'll be on my radar. And definitely for the fact that I remember hearing good things about it. I forgot they did get a Game Pass bag. So it's no excuse for me to at least see what's going on over there. And I want to check it out. So yeah, I'm liking what I'm hearing. I love the way it looks. And it seems really well done. So yeah, thanks for this one, Hope. I put it on my radar.
Is this on every platform? Oh yeah, it is. Okay. Not Nintendo, but yeah, everything else. Okay. Very cool. $40 and on Game Pass. So yeah, I'm very curious about that, Hoeg. I'll try to get to it sometime this year.
Yeah, check it out. Cool. I understand everybody's backlog. There are a lot of good games to play and a lot of long good games to play.
Yeah.
Insane.
Dying here. Dying. All right. Speaking of a game I would like to check out sometime, but I don't know when I'll be able to get to, is Avowed. Cog, you've been playing Avowed.
Yes,
your beloved Obsidian, as you say, the Black Rock.
The Black Rock Obsidian. Yeah, man. About 50, 60 hours. I finally completed Avowed last week.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, man, a lot to talk about. I know it's, I would say it's considered polarizing, but I know there's a lot of strong opinions about the game. So I wanted to kind of like wait until I finished it. And I was satisfied, man. I really felt the ending I got was earned, I received. And I like that where they try to go there. So basically, for those who don't know, Avowed is in the Pillars universe. I am not a Pillars guy. I've never played a Pillars game. I don't know anything about this universe. And first thing you learn is like, it's a lot of godlike stuff. There's a lot of theology. It's a lot of, I'm like, okay, gods are talking to me in my sleep. I don't know what the smartest thing this game did for people like me who are onboarding into the Pillars universe is every conversation, which I love. There's this, you can press the X button, and then there's a history and glossary of any terms that has been mentioned in the conversation that you are having that you have no idea what they're talking about. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is what that means. That was like a huge godsend for every conversation. So pretty much, for those who don't know, it's like you're the envoy of an emperor from this place called Adir. When you get to this place called the Living Lands, there's this thing called a dream scourge, this plague going on, right? And it's corrupting the living. People are going crazy. And you're sent to this island, which has like multiple biomes, to kind of investigate and see what's going on. And you kind of realize early that your race of people, the Adirians, are not really like, they kind of look almost like coloners. And this island wants to kind of, the people of this island, they go here to flee your little Roman regime. Like they don't like you being there is the energy kind of, and they don't trust Adirians kind of thing. And you're an Adirian. So I kind of went with I went with my class kind of to think person kind of like a sage-like person, like a court orator, augur who kind of knows the spirituality of things and the land and stuff like that. So I have extra dialogue trees when I talk to people and that kind of energy. So which I thought was cool. The thing right off the bat with the way the game started is like, I've never really played a game where normally I'm playing where it's very structured. You are a wizard. You pick the ranger class or you pick the fighter class. Avowed is like, no, you can pick attributes from everything. Mm-hmm. So if you want to be a guy with a wand and a grimoire, or you want to be a guy with a pistol and a shield, or you can do sword and board, you can literally play how you want to play. And I think it kind of blew my mind that I have to break traditional tropes that I have as a gamer. Avowed truly gives you that freedom. I think that's the strength of the game. The combat is really fun. But for me, where I thought the addictive nature of the game really took place is the exploration. Okay. I'm going to say something controversial.
Oh.
I think Avowed is Obsidian's best environment and best world that they've ever created. Now, when I say this, calm down, New Vegas fans. I know what you're about to say.
You didn't say writing, guys.
Right. Now, when I didn't say writing, and I didn't say reactive, like what I want to say,
RPG, like dialogue choices.
World state and that part. They're not there. Definitely, even Outer Worlds has a better reactive world state than them because there's like spaces choices, different factions, and if you can't be cool with everyone, and it has consequences. Avowed doesn't have that. What I'm talking about is pure exploration. When you see something, and first of all, the world is absolutely beautiful. The biomes are beautiful. When you go to Dawnshore, it's this coastal town. The verticality, you could go as high as a lighthouse, look down on the whole world.
That sounds nice.
Rewards your curiosity on everything you do in funny and evil ways too. If you touch things and there's this thing I always tell the story where it was like was exploring the coast of a land, and I got down to the jagged rocks, and I'm clambering down there, and I seen a skeleton in a seat. I was like, what's going on over here? And I go up to the thing. It was kind of giving me that yo-ho and a bottle of rum kind of energy. And it's like, if you come down here, if you want the secret sword, you don't have to pass the trial. And then thousands of dead skeletons surround you and you're fighting for your life. Like this game, if you touch things you're not supposed to, things could happen. Or it's so well designed. And what I like is multiple ways to approach something. You can, depending on the diversity of the environment, you can also swim in water and go through caves. It's just so well done. So you got that, you got Dawnshore, you got Shadowscarp, which is kind of a very desert-like area. I think one of their best areas is this area called the Emerald Stair. And at night, the fauna illuminates and glows up the land. This game is stunning. Like from a purely environmental standpoint, I think this is their best work. Now, the criticisms, like you were saying, as far as my issues with it, I had two major issues at first. The first one was I had a technical issue that when I was talking to NPCs, my character, because they like to show your created character sometimes his face, he'd be moving at 60 frames per second. But the NPC once in a while move at 30. And I'm like, it's very jarring. It didn't happen all the time. But I'm like, this shouldn't be happening. And it's really detracting from my experience. So I would say about 30 to 40% of the time that was happening. Now they've since patched it. It happens less. But that was the first thing I noticed. To your point, Brad, the problem where this game is going to get criticized is that Obsidian themselves have set a high standard from pure hardcore RPG mechanics where choice and consequence truly matter. Where I was satisfied with my choices in Avowed, the problem where it falls apart is that one time I said, okay, it was a major decision. And Avowed, I'm like, okay, it was really written well. I'm like, okay, then what am I going to do? They give you the option to talk to your companions, to ask your companions, okay, what do you guys think? Everyone has their own motivations, their own different things. I then make the tough decision. The result happens. I'm like, okay, I guess I'll have to live with that. But something said, you know what? Let me save Scum, go back and see what would have happened. And it was different, but ultimately got to the same conclusion and wasn't radically divergent enough. And I'm like, you know what I'm saying? So that's why I'm like, it's kind of the illusion of choice on certain things because ultimately the game's still forcing a certain direction. And that's where I felt like, even with certain ideology and people that you align with, there's one that I'm like, man, you didn't really sell that enough as to why I should join that side and what the true consequences of that were. Now, at the end, I will say there were divergent choices and there were different endings. But again, I just felt based on their prior work, like, for example, we've played Mass Effect. There's certain moments where it is truly divergent on the choices and the people you affect, and you will have very distinct outcomes. I felt like because now that I've learned about the development cycle of Avowed, I guess it came from an open world game to a co-op game. And then now, they try to narrow down to a Pillars game. I just think that I could see where those flaws kind of rose. But ultimately, at the end of what I was going to say is that I think the foundation for an IP is here. It's fantastic. I think it's some of the best combat I've played, the best exploration I've played. And I will say the companions, at first, the story and the companion were not a strength of the game. And as it went on, it really intensified, especially the campfire scenes. And they got our guy, he plays the character Kai. They got the voice actor from Garrus from Mass Effect.
Oh, yeah.
I love him. I felt the two best characters. He's one of the better written characters. And this character named Giada, and she's into a specific storyline that I thought was really cool. But ultimately, look, it's kind of like in that, if I had to put a score, it's in that 8 range. It could have been so special. But there's a couple of things holding it back from greatness. But what I hope is they take the lessons and you use that foundation and now add on what we want as hardcore gamers. But yeah, I did enjoy my experience with Avowed overall, though.
Yeah, from what I've heard, Cog, it sounds like gameplay is good. People really like the gameplay, the exploration, the combat. But I guess the narrative aspects of the game and like the choices you make are kind of lackluster from what people wanted. It's like they excelled in combat and traversal and stuff like that, but kind of fell short in the other areas that people kind of expected from Obsidian. And studios change over time, and that's totally cool. But I don't know. Everyone I hear about this game they say like, yeah, it's good, but always something like that. Mm-hmm. And I do want to check it out, but I'm playing Kingdom Come right now. I'm like, there ain't no way I'm like touching this game right now. But like,
I don't think you want to play Avowed next to Kingdom Come Deliverance.
No.
Good call.
I think it's going to be it's like when I played The Witcher 3, then I played Fallout 4, and I was like, man,
yep,
what happened here? kind of thing.
I agree with Hoeg. That's going to be the problem for you. You're coming from the most immersive simulation RPG like almost ever made. And the casualization you'll see of Avowed, it'll strike out immediately to you after coming from KCD. For sure.
Yeah, my experience playing Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, which I am thoroughly enjoying and fully recommend, and then playing Avowed, which I have not beaten. I've only played it for maybe a dozen hours again, and so I'm early stages yet in that game, but was that it immediately felt like Disneyland compared to something else. It felt like this was a superficial world. And I did not react as well as Cog did to kind of what I would consider the platforming elements, the verticality, that exploration that they have built into this game. I agree that I think this is probably their strongest geographical world, insofar as I didn't find anything particularly special about the world of New Vegas as made up of buildings and artifacts rather than the writing or Outer Worlds. So I think this probably is their best at that. There is a certain amount of fun in seeing the day-night cycle and having everything start to glow and the various fantasy coloration in this particular world. And I think the combat, I don't think it's great. I think it is better than I thought it would be.
Okay.
And I do think it's kind of the best version of first-person combat in a fantasy setting that we have seen, including things like Skyrim. So I do think it is better than I would have anticipated, but it is not selling it to me as what I want to be doing with my time compared to everything else that I could play. So Avowed winds up in this space for me personally, and I don't mean to sound so negative on these things, that it's fine, but that's below some things that are good that are on my backlog that I want to play.
Yeah.
I'll ask you a question. Which build did you go with? I was just very curious. Like, I'm very curious. Like, what did you go magic? Did you go ranger? Did you go fighter? Like, what kind of combinations were you putting together with your?
Yeah, so I think right now I'm running with a couple ranger powers.
Okay,
but to backstop a magic build. So I'm using things to like trap people. I'm using things to otherwise make my aim work, but I'm using those for the benefit of a wand.
Yes, so basically, like you'll use the rangers, root them down into the ground, keep them stagnant, and then you go into your magic build and stuff. Like, okay, I see
that may be one of my favorite techniques. Yes,
I literally play the same way. It's funny you say. I said, okay, I'm going to take the rangers, rooting someone in the ground. I'm going to go grimoire. The thing that really impressed me that I was very surprised about was they actually have, they call them the arquebus, which is like a shotgun kind of long range sniper, one shot musket kind of thing.
Cool.
And the pistols, the game it takes a little bit of that Final Fantasy VII stagger meter kind of mechanic where you can build up stuff. So I started to build into my gear like a stun build. Anything that gives additional stun and make that stagger meter go up, and then they get into that state. And then what happens is when they're at max, the games will get into a cinematic mode, slow motion, and you do massive damage to them in that thing. And I was like, okay, this is satisfying. Yeah. But to your point, I hear where you're coming from as far as some people say, hey, it's just, not clicking with them in that respect. And
I don't have anything bad to say about it. Yeah. I think it's fine. Mm-hmm. I guess if I had one bit of more negativity that I don't necessarily disagree with you. And I want to caveat this with, I'm not as far in the plot. You've beaten the game. I haven't gotten to whatever some of the things might happen later on. Is I don't love that the very first companion character is Garrus. And I like that actor and I like Garrus, but Kai is very much Garrus. Like it's that same kind of sardonic humor.
Yes.
And that's fine. I get what you're going for, but I don't want to play Discount Garrus as my first party member. So I feel bad saying that because I think the actor's great. I'm sure the writers worked hard on it, but it's very much Garrus as a character.
It's Garrus. I will give you that. It is literally Garrus. Like there's not enough distinction from him. We understand the voice actor can't change his voice. That's who he is. He's literally acting like Garrus. He has those quips, and I'm like, okay. I will give you this from a companion standpoint. I felt the game they were very introduced weakly to me. I didn't like the way they were introduced. I will say, the game starts to shine companion-wise once you finally get all of them. Because what happens is they kind of steal a little bit of Baldur's Gate where you have to go to the campfire, you go to your you set whenever you're doing your upgrades and things of that nature. And what happens is you get this natural banter every time. Usually if 15 seconds or 20 seconds of no talking happens, the two characters will start interacting and you start learning. And I'm like, okay, this is actually really cool. And then also taking them when you have both characters together, because I think you get like 4 total and you can carry 2 at a time. When you take 2 at a time out into the world and their reaction to every area that you do, and that was the thing I wanted to say, Brad. Mm-hmm. This game this game does not reward you for just killing things. This game rewards you for exploring. You get more experience exploring or doing side quests. This game does not reward just farming enemies and killing enemies. And I think that's the hook for me because it satiates my curiosity, especially when you have that fog of war kind of thing over the map. And I'm like, damn, these environments are so fun. Like, I want to know what's over there. And then you go there and you get tremendous experience just for exploring it. You get tremendous experience just for, doing a side quest. And I think it just hits a little thing for me. I don't know what it does that it's satisfying. It's just an addictive. I will say this, and again, it's controversial. I haven't felt that way since Skyrim, to be honest. When I play open world games, I'm usually, okay, I'll do a couple of side quests, but for the most part, okay, let's point A to point B, let's get the main quest going. And that's when I knew Avowed had its hooks in me as I continue to venture later on. But I think the criticisms are valid with what Hoeg is saying. And I think for a lot of people, they're like, okay, it's okay, but I'm not like wowed by it, kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I think it's fine. And I do come from a background of the Pillars games. I think I was a Kickstarter of Project Eternity way back whenever that was.
Okay.
When they were funding the original Pillars game. I really enjoyed the first one. I enjoyed the second one even more. And this is a step back from that depth. That's fine. This is a different type of game. You have different projects. You have different targets and goals. That's okay. This is a step back from that heavy CRPG depth of lore and storytelling of those Pillars games. You do immediately feel that, especially if you're familiar with the lore there. I agree with you 100%, Cog, that the highlighted words have a logbook that you can enter into during the conversation is a great idea. And I want to see more games do it, just like I want to see more games have that codex that Final Fantasy 16 had.
Yes.
You're just like, I don't understand what anything's being said here. I'm just going to pause this cutscene and it's going to tell me what's happening. That's great stuff. I love that. More games should do that because it allows for more in-depth storytelling. But at least as far as I've gotten, which is basically nowhere in this game, I will fully admit, it hasn't had that kind of compelling story beat that I want it to have for me to want to keep playing it. It doesn't have that drive.
Fair. That's fair.
And so that's why it's fallen second place to Kingdom Come right
Absolutely.
now.
No, I ain't challenging against KCD. KCD, that's a whole, I told people KCD is very GOAT-like energy. It's for golden type energy.
It stands above.
Yeah, it's without question. I would say for you, if you do get a chance to get to it, right when you get towards the final mission of Dawnshore is when it heated up for me story-wise. And I'm like, okay, now I have emotional weight and something crazy happened. And I'm like, oh, okay. That's when the hook started. But I agree. It took a while. I would have to give you that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, KCD still is here.
Sure.
For sure.
Are they going to do DLC for this? Do you know?
Yes. Me and Maddie interviewed Kerry Patel, the game's director, and she definitely alluded. There's more stories to talk about in this universe. Also, when you look at the map, this island has a bunch of biomes that they didn't even have us, explore yet. So there's a ton of stuff for them to do.
Yeah, maybe I'll wait a little bit.
Yeah, you got time.
I got too much stuff to play already, but
good.
I do want to check it out. It looks interesting. Can I summon a skeleton warrior to fight or something like that?
Yes,
like an undead thing. Cool. Excellent.
There are a lot of items, accessories, rings, things like that. Again, every bit of exploration is rewarded with something cool. And, and that's another thing I want to, last point. Hoeg, I'm a Destiny guy. I want to give their weapons team a lot of credit. They had one of my issues with like a Starfield, even though I love Starfield, I like the point A to point B story. Where Starfield fell apart for people who like to explore, right, and go off the beaten path, you had those kind of barren planets and procedurally generated stuff and blah, 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 right? But this is like handcraft or whatever. But the beauty of Avowed, the strength of Avowed is when you do explore, you'll get something cool. You know what I mean? You're like, wow, this is unique. I got a unique medium armor, a light armor, and it has these properties. Or you get this weapon. This is a lightning axe that does this. I had a two-handed sword that when the enemy was full health, it would put them on fire. When they were half health, it would freeze them and shatter them. And I'm like, this is what I wanted from Starfield. I'm like, there's not enough unique. Don't give me generic auto rifle number 6 with it almost reminds me of Destiny with those exotic like properties. The uniques in Avowed are amazing. They're handcrafted and have dope properties and animations. And bro, I got a wand that's like a shock wand and shocks it. It's crazy. The stuff you get in this game is crazy. And last thing as far as if you go full wizard, you can get really crazy.
Cool.
The things you can do.
Cool.
I will 100% back you up on the loot chase, because even when you start the game, they talk about the fact that all of the artifacts are going to be unique, and then you get unique versions of all the things that you can equip on your character, and that is much more satisfying than something like Starfield. I agree with that completely. I just happen to like the Star Trek environment of Starfield a little bit more than Avowed when it starts out.
We the sci-fi guys. I got you.
Cool. All right, boys. Let's do... Okay, so Dustin gave me criticism for this because I wasn't putting enough gusto into it. So he demanded I do more. Time for Sort It Out!
All right.
There you go, Dustin. All right. So for this segment, everybody, if you don't, or if you're not aware, we just talk about something in the game industry that's bothering us, something that needs some sorting out. Could be a game, company, individual company, whatever. Personal as you want to get. Now, I have one right away that happened last week. I'm sure many of you are well aware. WB. Good old WB losing Monolith Productions and all that kind of stuff. Hate to see it. Was hoping I'd get one more Shadow Mordor game or something like that. Especially how they ended the second one. Could have done it for one more. But hate to see all those teams go. They just purchased pretty recently. What was it? The Multiverses team. They bought them
Player
recently.
First.
Yes.
Player First, yeah.
And they just shut them down.
I think it's the same fiscal year. It was the craziest thing.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I'm gonna jump on that train because my Sorted Out was a version of this.
Okay, what was yours?
Which is to say, I did a virtual legality on the Nemesis patent and things like that. But I was reminded as part of that video of a game that I would really like to see released from intellectual property purgatory, and that is an old Monolith game, a first-person shooter set in the 60s, starring Kate Archer, the James Bond send-up, called No One Lives Forever. And this is a game that was tried to be restored by Night Dive Studios. You might be familiar with it. It has made a bunch of these other kind of remake games, The Thing and System Shock, and working on System Shock 2. And they tried to get the rights to this. And because of the way the contracts were written and because of the multiple publishers that helped make this game, none of the studios would be willing to say who owns this game, and so it is stuck forever in legal limbo. So Sorted Out is very literal in this context. Figure out who owns the rights to No One Lives Forever so we can play it again.
Yes, I love that.
Yes,
these are great. I was going to add on. I mean, Brad, you had to say what is me, man. It was it's WB, man. It's just, I guess for me, the reason why my Sort Out is it's so frustrating for me because I feel like they have so many amazing IPs, and then the ones that they had success with, they're like, okay, we're going to go against our core identity of making these great single player amazing games, and we're going to chase the trend of, live service and suicides. And I'm just like, bro, you guys, the biggest Sorted Out for me is you guys have the Game of Thrones license. And all we got out of that was like a Telltale game and now a mobile game. Like, could you imagine having a game like that ready in the height of could you imagine when the series was at its height, if there was a comparable game out, like it would have just, to me,
I think
speaking of franchises that could have used Nemesis, I mean, Game of Thrones could have used the Nemesis system. No doubt.
Of course, yeah.
Kills me.
So there is a Xbox 360 Game of Thrones game, but
really,
I remember it was just kind of like not great. It was 2012, I believe.
Really? I never knew about this. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was a mid-range first-person RPG.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah. It's like not very great. That's probably why you never even heard of it, Cog.
Well, I never heard it. Only what I remember was the Telltale one. And then just hearing like, just how could a Wonder Woman game not be good? Like I struggle with that one. Like, damn.
Yeah. It's just like, I don't know, like what they're doing, like out of all these IP, like you have like why you're choosing the ones you are and why you're doing them the way you are. Like
exactly.
Suicide Squad, obviously a disaster. Gotham Knights, I didn't really enjoy.
Same.
I know some people did but not me.
Not me. And
it's just like, man, they're lucky Hogwarts Legacy did so well for them because that probably helped them a lot. So hopefully they don't fuck up the sequel. I hope they don't go live service route with that game, which I could see them doing, but I hope they don't.
You do worry when the Eye of Sauron is on you that maybe Hogwarts Legacy was developed without the studio looking so closely at it, and now they'll be more invested.
But
I think the story of Warner Brothers obviously is not limited to the game side of things. Warner Brothers is in a state across its entire media enterprise. And so this is just the latest kind of bit of Warner Brothers having difficulty. But they do have a lot of good intellectual property. They do have a lot of good game developers. You'd hope that those would meet at some point in the future.
Yeah.
Because they have like Hogwarts going good. They have Mortal Kombat that usually does fine. I know it's not very popular amongst the community right now, but it's a big IP. So I don't know, man. We'll see, I guess. Just brutal.
I agree.
All right. This is from the Slayer Giant, kind of piggybacking off what we said. Hello, Brad, and the mighty consortium of Hoeg and Cog. This week's Sword Out goes to Warner Brother Games, an absolutely laughing stock of a publisher at the whims of corporate fat cat suits that's fumbled more than a New York Jets quarterback. Damn.
Damn, not the butt.
Sorry.
Damn.
Sorry, Colin. Killing a story team in Monolith after someone else's catastrophic failure? And after canceling their IP and forcing them to do a Wonder Woman, feels like they're the epitome of what Sorted Out is all about. Yeah. WB,
can't disagree.
You got problems. Yeah.
Can't disagree here.
All right. This is from Twiddle Sticks. Hey, how's it going, bros? I just want to issue a Sorted Out to the Shrek fanatics going nuts over the new character model iterations. It ain't that bad, bros. Also, you know who else who looks like an ugly Sonic ogre? My mom. Woo! Later, ladies. All right, that's our regular show reference.
I gotta tell you, I've looked at this Shrek teaser, and admittedly, I haven't watched the Shrek movies like the day before or anything, but it doesn't look any different to me. I'm sure somebody with more artistic acumen could come and circle the differences in the new iteration, but it looks like Shrek to me.
Yeah, it looks fine. I'm looking at it right now. I don't know. Like, I don't even know why people care that much. Shrek 3 and 4 suck, so it's like, I don't know.
I think the last Shrek I saw might have been 2. Is that the one where the gingerbread man attacks the castle?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
That's the last good one. 1 and 2 are good, but 3 and 4 sucked. What about you, Cog? What's your Shrek level of that?
Not much. I just sit there and said, okay, it look like Shrek to me. I guess the more hardcore, they can fight amongst themselves as to why this is so, such a bad take. I would just like, it looked like Shrek. I don't know what's so crazy about it, but
it is
the casual.
It is the reminder that any given movie is somebody's favorite, right? That they're deeply invested in some way. Because, I didn't see any issues with the teaser. I'm not super excited about Shrek making TikTok jokes or Instagram jokes, but I wouldn't have been super excited about anything they could do for a modern send-up, I don't think. Mm-hmm. And so I'm the wrong person to be convinced of the Shrek model being super off anyway, but I didn't see anything to be terribly upset about.
Likewise.
And I feel like Shrek is just like a meme that's persisted to me. It's okay if he looks weird. Like, I don't know. It's just Shrek. It's fine.
Shrek as an intellectual property was a bit of a meme to begin with. It was it was an attack on Disney animation to begin with. So I don't see it as any different now.
Yeah, well, we'll see how Shrek 5 does. I don't know. I don't think I'll go see it, but you guys can let us know when it comes out what you think about it. All right. This is from Eric Rodriguez. Hi. Sorted Out. Game industry / game journalist. In Pokemon the same as FIFA or Call of Duty? Treating them the same? These games iterate in very small ways, have a microtransaction business, and have zero shame about the first 2 points. Argue that Pokemon makes a ton of money from cards. That's the business that keeps on giving year after year. The games probably peak only during the release year. FIFA has the in-game cards. Call of Duty has the skins. Let's treat Pokemon with the same disgust and bury their games / reviews deep in the Mariana Trench ? I'm not exactly sure you're saying, but I'm going to guess you want to compare Pokemon to FIFA. Yeah. And
I think the notion here is that Pokemon, at least per this viewer, gets too much crap when we don't give as much crap to something like FIFA or the other iterative sports games. And certainly Pokemon fans give a lot of crap to Game Freak and the Pokemon announcements, the Pokemon Presents, what have you. That's certainly true. Yes. Do they deserve it is the question I think posed to us here. I'm not sure I would equate the sale of Pokemon cards to the microtransactions in a FIFA game or Ultimate Team or wherever else you're at.
Yeah.
It's a different industry doing different things. But one of the things that does come up a lot in microtransactions land is, are even things like Pokemon card packs okay? I just did a video on the FTC bringing in a complaint against Genshin Impact for its gotcha mechanics and whether or not they are properly transparent in what they do and whether they're taking advantage of kids. And it's very difficult whenever we have that conversation to separate out gotcha mechanics or loot boxes or whatever microtransaction we're looking at from the notion of buying baseball cards, or in modern days, Pokemon cards, and whether or not that's gambling or something that's a problem for kids at the same time. So I get anybody that looks at this and says, if Pokemon's okay, then FIFA's okay, or vice versa. If we're going to have problems with Genshin Impact, maybe we should have problems with Pokemon cards. But I do think when we look at these, we can't quite make that equation of these things being treated the same. People that are investing money in FIFA are different audience members than those that are buying the Pokemon games. And Pokemon still is ostensibly an RPG. I know it's not really the depth of RPG that we look at from our perspective. It's not really as intricately designed as something like Persona or hopefully Expedition 33. But I can also tell you, as the father of two girls, Pokemon is one of those games that they really enjoy and helps get them invested in the video game world in a way that they wouldn't without that as an entry point. So I think Pokemon gets a lot of crap. I think that Game Freak maybe hasn't moved technologically as far forward as fans of that series would like. But I can tell you that Scarlet and Violet and probably Z to A in the future will be some of the most popular things played in my household. So I can't tell you that they're doing things wrong if they are meeting their audience where they live, even if that audience is us.
Yeah, well, I've been playing through all the Pokemon games recently because I had no experience. Well, I played like the originals when they came out, but I've been going through all of them recently.
Yeah, I remember you were saying that last time we spoke. Yeah,
and yeah, I'm on X and Y now. If anyone's curious, but anyways, Pokemon is not. There's not a new Pokemon like mainline Pokemon game every year. There's several years in between them. Like what was it? Scarlet and Violet came out in 2022. So it's been a while. We don't even know when the next one's going to be. Like ZA is not the next mainline Pokemon game. That's a spinoff. So I can't really compare it to like Madden and FIFA that come out every single year. And there's not like microtransactions in the proper Pokemon games. You know, you're not buying skins and stuff like that. They add DLC that's maybe like new content, and that's about it. Now you can make a case for they're selling you two different games, which is funny to get everything. That's one thing.
They built that model a long time ago, and it was weird then, and it's weird now.
Yeah, and it worked wonders for them. They ain't stopping. So I mean, it'd be great if I don't have to buy two.
I wouldn't tell them to stop, but it is still strange.
Still strange. That's what it is. Okay.
Game Freak, I think, is just a frustrating company because one, Pokemon is the biggest IP in the entire planet, and it's going to sell no matter what. Like Pokemon always sells well, no matter what. And it's like when you see the potential there, but it seemed like they were rushing stuff out instead of really honing in on something really excellent. So that's my problems with like Pokemon Company, especially like Scarlet and Violet. Those games looked ugly and they ran really bad, but there's cool ideas in it that I really like. So hopefully the next mainline game, they step up their game, but I don't know. Not quite as bad as FIFA, I guess, buying $70 game, then spending all of the money of those kids on the cards in the game and all that stuff. Yeah.
Oh, insane. I'm surprised. What you goes not on this list? NBA 2K and My Player.
Yeah, all those sports games probably.
And bro, that is egregious. I know people who literally all they do is play those games, and they literally put aside enough money for the microtransactions of VC to get that. And now I see the WWE series.
Yes,
like
they're doing the same
about
thing.
To go down that route with this island. Again, all of that is kind of a mock-up of how the NBA 2K addiction of My Player is. And that is a cash cow. That, to me, is very predatory, in my opinion.
Yes. We all know a couple gamers like that. They buy sports games and maybe Call of Duty.
Yep.
That's about it.
I know dudes like that. I grew up with dudes like that. That's all. It's Madden or the new Call of Duty or the NBA 2K. They buy that one game every year. Mm-hmm. They spend a ton on microtransaction, and the way it's set up is that you actually can't compete unless you buy the microtransaction to improve your player. It's very predatory.
Yeah, that's rough. Like
Yeah.
player stuff, pay to win kind of stuff on top of a $70 game or whatever full price game. Yeah. No, thank you. Not for me. Very predatory. But hey, it's your money. You can do it the way you want.
Exactly. Yep.
So what we're saying is it's good that Game Freak isn't charging for Pokeballs just yet.
That's true. Just yet. But let's hope not. Let's not give him any ideas. All right. This is from Andrew Ketzenberg. Hey, Summoners, first time right in here. Sorted out to KCDD2 for having to start new game on the pause menu. I didn't really think anything of it until today. I paused the game to help my girlfriend unload groceries, and our daughter went into our room and bumped the controller and hit new game. It instantly deleted my save data and started a new game. Just like that. Over 100 hours of playtime reset over a one button press. So sort it out to them and keep the start new game on the main menu only, or let us have multiple save files. Anyways, off I go to restart my playthrough of KCD2. Cheers.
Jesus.
Dude, it's in the start menu? I don't remember.
Yeah,
is it?
I
haven't really checked, but that's brutal. Why would you do start new game on the start menu when you're playing?
It is interesting. And I know KCD gets a lot of crap also for the schnapps and all that stuff. But yeah, this part is true. And it's just, it is unfortunate what happened to him. Very unlucky what happened to him. But damn, I feel that pain. That game, like put it this way, like I got the review copy and I was playing it on PC and I really want to play it on console, you know what I'm saying? Because just for the convenience of being in my living room and stuff like that. But I'm like, man, I put so many hours. I done made so many potions. I done did all this stuff. And I'm like, I ain't trying to do all that stuff again. I love my playthrough where it is. So that's what's kind of preventing me from, you know, and I even spoke to the developers like, hey, would you guys ever do a cross progression like Baldur's Gate? Because of that, like, I love that Baldur's Gate did that. You know, you log into that account, play on Steam, and then I can go, you know, on Xbox or whatever like that. So I feel his pain. Who's this gentleman? Andrew. Oh, bro, condolences, brother. Jesus, 100 hours and
that
lost
hurts.
just like that hurts. Yeah, it's weird. And then the other thing that's weird about KCD with the pause menu is, even though you have to, you know, their traditional stops in the save system with the potions is in the game, they still kind of cheat by having an exit and save.
Yeah, you get an Iron Man save.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, you know what I'm saying? So, that sucks, man.
That was my thing with the game is I'm not opposed to the idea. I just feel like they kind of try to have their cake and eat it too.
Yes.
I'm like, like where I'm at, like it doesn't really matter. Like it's so easy to get those potions.
Easy.
So easy.
Once
so
you know
like,
one recipe, once they teach you that recipe early, you just stock up on it. Get your little chamomile.
You don't even have to make. You can buy them, and they're cheap.
Yes. I forgot you can't buy them. Yeah, from the what you call it?
Just
the vendors.
Yeah, they're cheap. So I don't know.
Yeah,
that's a whole different conversation, though.
No, I'm Brad. I'm with you. I feel they were scared to just commit to it, and they're the most hardcore game that commits on everything else. And immersive sim, but that one, it seems like they try to listen to a little feedback, but they're half in, half out. Just commit.
Yeah, I was hoping to commit one way or the other.
The Iron Man save.
You want that? Oh, you like the Iron Man save?
Absolutely. I need that as a parent. I need to be able to stop the game. This is the same reason I can't play FromSoft games as much as I would like. I need to be able to get out. And one of the problems I had with KCD1 before, I think they added this later on, was that you had to have the stops. You didn't have this Iron Man out. And if you weren't by a place that you could save or sleep or what have you, you were just out of luck. And so I can't play those games when I have to have an unending game session with any kind of regularity. So I like that Iron Man save. Yes, it does take away from the schnapps as a function a little bit. But I'm okay with both being in there at once.
Let me push back. Why don't you just pause the game and turn your TV off?
Because I was raised to not love to have a system on under my and I pay the electricity bills.
I feel you. I got to start trouble.
Also, because apparently my daughter can come in and quit my entire save of KCD2, and that would be very disappointing for me.
Yeah,
devastating.
On the start menu, jeez,
devastating.
Absolutely brutal. Yeah. Well, good luck
minimum,
there.
Add a 4-digit lockout code or something. Help me out.
Yeah. Some multiple prompts. Are you sure?
Are you sure?
Give me a 2-factor authenticator on that.
Yeah.
That
All
part.
right. Good luck, Andrew, on your new save.
Good luck, brother.
All right, guys. Time for Keep It Up. The exact opposite. Stuff we're enjoying in the game industry. Stuff we're pleased with right now. Hoeg, let's start with you, man. Are you pleased with anything?
I have an unusual candidate for Keep It Up here, and it is Konami.
Ooh.
I was very happy to see Konami make good with Bloober after the success of Silent Hill 2. I'm excited about the Delta release for Metal Gear Solid 3.
Yes.
And overall, I'm just excited to have Konami back interested, at least somewhat, in making video games instead of pachinko machines. So keep it up, Konami. We're happy to have you back. You have a lot of good intellectual property. I am all in for a Vandal Hearts revisit if you are interested. Bring it over.
Please.
But keep it up, Konami, is my answer to this question.
Great one. Oh, Konami. Old Konami is a special place in my heart, so I'm very happy to see them coming back in some way. I just need Castlevania back and for it to be good, so that's what I'm hoping for next. Cog, anything from you, dude?
Yeah, I'm going to stay with KCD, too, in terms of, like, keep it up with game budgets and actually, you know, staying within your means. It was so cool to see them hit the 2 million, sales and kind of recoup already. And obviously we're in this climate right now where games are just so expensive. They're so big. And, you know, one mistake and you're out of here, you know, kind of thing. And it was just refreshing to see them stay within their means and then make the game what they want to make, commit to it, and then have success. And just, in general, also CryEngine. You know, I'm very impressed to see them outside in a world where Unreal Engine 5 is everywhere and, you know, Unity. And to see this engine just, I think it's an amazing engine because it's not just the fact that the game looks beautiful. There's so many calculations from an AI standpoint of world, NPCs, everyone's on day-night schedule. All the characters have jobs, they have lives. You see them go through their day, and it's impressive. Usually with games that are that CPU bound, they don't look as good.
Right.
And they have this combination. And I love the facial expressions, the way characters emote in their cinematics in KCD2. And I'm very impressed. I'm like, this is, I remember I interviewed Tobias, the community manager. It's a modified version of the CryEngine. And I'm just like, why aren't developers using this? You guys are looking like you're running laps around everyone. Like, this is amazing. So, yeah, shout out to them from, again, an engine standpoint, and then designing within their means and budget, and then still getting that success. I think it should be commendable.
I totally agree with you, Cog. Very good. You know what? Since you're here, Cog, I'm going to do one that's going to hit home for you. I'm going to say keep it up to Ninja Games. They're back, baby, this year. This is the year of the Ninja. 3 Ninja Gaiden games in 1 year. Black 2, Ragebound, I think it's called, and we have 4 coming. And, of course, Cog's beloved Shinobi coming back, looking very good. Is that from the Streets of Rage developers? 4?
Yes, that is from Lizard Cube. And, I interviewed those guys early, and you could tell not only do they have the passion for a lot of these Sega games, these classic Sega games like Streets of Rage and Shinobi and stuff like that, Sega also trusted them to make that a canon sequel, you know, Streets of Rage 4. So Lizard Cube, Chris, those guys were amazing. And the guy he was the art director of Streets of Rage 5 is now the director of Shinobi Art of Vengeance. Yeah. So they're in good hands. They're in good hands. I love that art style. Yeah.
How does it make you feel as a Sega kid to see some of these IPs coming back in such strong ways?
Oh, grown man tears, man. I mean, these are the things that got me into gaming. I mean, you know, Sega especially, you know, as a person who comes from the arcade era, and, you know, I remember seeing these games and how vibrant they were in the arcade. And then you're like, okay, now I'm waiting for that to come home to a Master System or Genesis. Then you realize at a young age, hey, these aren't really arcade perfect. There's a lot of concessions here, you know, kind of thing. But to see these beloved IPs that were dormant and also from a standpoint of Sega wasn't doing well. So to see Sega now have this research, that's why I can't wait for Hoeg to talk about the game he's playing, because I want to know what's going on there. You know, and then obviously, you know, Brad, you know, I'm now newer to the what we consider the Atlas family and Persona and now beaten Metaphor. And to see Sega have this level of resurgence where they're a major player again and now bringing back this is the timeline I was able to stay alive to make it for. Like, that's how I look at it. Like, I made it, Hoeg. Like, we made it, brother. Like,
you and Sega.
Bro, to see Sega resurge as a Sega kid, like, I never thought this day. That's why I laugh at Xbox guys. Like, you just be lucky. Your console is still existing right now. I woke up one day, Dreamcast was over. They were like, we're not making anymore. And by the way, Sonic is over there with Mario. Like, these were unheard of things at its time. So I was like, you worried about some little IPs going over to PlayStation. You haven't lived until you were a Sega.
Yeah.
The pain that.
You know, it's funny. It's funny. I just realized the other day that the two games that I am playing the most in February both have that Sega logo at the beginning. And that's a surprise, right? We talk about them enough. You're talking about older franchises. These are newer franchises that I'm playing, but Sega is killing it even in a quarter where the backlog is so strong, where there are so many games to play. I'm playing the heck out of Pirate Yakuza, which we're going to talk about, and I'm playing the heck out of 2 Point Museum, which is one of the best tycoon games that I have played in a long, long time.
Yes.
I love the 2 Point Company. I love 2 Point Hospital, and that's what got Sega to buy them. And 2 Point Museum is utterly fantastic, which I think comes out formally tomorrow. They had a 5-day early version, as so many games do, which I got because Mrs. Hoeg loves the 2 Point games.
Really?
And so I got her 2 Point Museum. She's been playing the heck out of it. I've been playing the heck out of it. It's fantastic. Couldn't recommend it more. But it's interesting to see Sega come from both sides there, both with their history and with their new products.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're in a resurgence. It's a golden era for me. And to see the love and care, with these really beloved IPs, and they're doing they got the right people working on it. It's a good thing right now. It's a good timeline.
Yeah, it is a good timeline. Okay, this is from Dua Lipa, Step On Me. You getting wild these names, guys. Howdy, y'all. I got to keep it up to the folks who make unofficial streaming apps like Chiaki and Moonlight. Streaming my PS5 to my ROG Ally has been a huge game changer. I'm also able to stream my gaming PC to the Ally and dock that are in my living room TV. Couch gaming is all the way back, boys. Love the show. Y'all take it easy now. Hey, sounds like COG energy right there.
Oh, yeah.
I'm always going to be in favor of interoperability, so keep at it.
Absolutely. Options are good. And I'm hearing good things about these optional streaming apps. So they actually educated me and Maddie on this, like how to get, more efficacy out of it. Yeah.
Cool. Very nice. All right. This is from Crimson Sun. Hey, Summoners, keep it up Electronic Arts to the Command & Conquer mod community. The source code for many Command & Conquer games has been released by EA's GitHub page, or on EA's GitHub release page, and many of the games are getting Steam Workshop support. This is great for game preservation and also some nice goodwill. Renegade multiplayer was really fun back in the day, so I'll be checking that out. Why would a publisher do this? Does that indicate they are done with the particular IP? If so, why not sell it off? Have a nice day. What do you think, Hoeg?
The answer to that is I don't know why Electronic Arts decided to do it right now. The overall reason why you do it, I think, is to keep the name in people's mind if you don't have an imminent release. And as they suggest in this comment, to generate some goodwill for your company and saying, we're on the side of the right. We're on the side of preservating. It's good language, folks. Preserving video games, and we want people to be out there having it. I also think it's great from a historical perspective. I've seen people dive into the source code for the Command & Conquer games and find the interesting programmer notes from various other aspects of the way these games were made. I love that stuff. I love that behind-the-scenes commentary track type stuff for games. So I think that's great. But why Electronic Arts decided to do it right this moment, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, very interesting. Command & Conquer, old franchise.
Oh, yeah.
Happy to see people still enjoying it. But,
the original Command & Conquer was such a big deal back in the day. If you weren't there, you might not realize it, but like real-time strategy was very, very early days when Command & Conquer came out. And between it and Dune 2, not the movie, the original real-time strategy game, that was a big moment in young Hoeg's journey through video gamedom.
The formative years.
The formative years. I loved full motion video in the 90s. Command & Conquer had the stupidest, like, TV channel changing motif for its cutscenes. Loved it.
Oh,
yeah, that stuff was cool.
You're taking me back. The FMV days. Wow. You're taking me back.
Made Kane a star.
Yes.
Hoeg, I'm sorry, Cog, did you have like a Sega CD or anything like that?
Yes, I had it briefly. What's funny is I was resistant for a while, and I didn't form my tower of power for the Genesis stuff. Then I was flirting. I was flirting with this was 3DO days. I think this was the 32-bit era, and I got kind of wrapped up with Trip Hawkins' all spiel and $700 on the console. It was a cool console for what it was. It just didn't last. And I ended up going back to Sega.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was flirting at that point. My eyes were averting to other things. I was looking at more power.
That's really funny that you had a 3DO.
Yeah, I loved my 3DO.
Oh yeah,
I don't know anyone that had one.
You was a 3DO dude, Hoeg.
Oh my God, Star Control 2 is my favorite game of all time.
I had no idea. How many friends all these years, and I had no idea you were a 3DO guy.
Straight up, number one game of all time, Star Control 2, particularly the 3DO version.
Hell yeah.
But really I love my 3DO. I played Operation Shockwave on 3DO. I played a bunch of weird games on that system.
Oh, yeah.
Crystal Dynamics had a big presence on 3DO.
Yeah, Total Eclipse and those games. I think the packet was Crash and Burn, I believe. Oh my God, we can have a 3DO podcast.
That's right.
the forgotten.
Let's start the worst rated podcast in the last media network.
No views. Oh yeah, for sure.
Panasonic.
Funny 3DO story. We were such 3DO believers that when it started to really fall apart, and they were scrambling Trip Hawkins, they made an announcement of an add-on. It was going to be called the M2. And me and King went to Trip. It was an event in New York City where they were going to debut this thing. Man, this was the most smoke and mirrors. Like it reminds me of remember when PlayStation did the Killzone trailer, and you're like, okay, you know that's not
real, yeah.
And they were trying to the thing that what they showed us looked better than Forza now. Back then, and I'm like, yeah, it's over.
I've said it in other spaces, I think, but Papa Hoeg was a big early adopter of everything. So we had a 3DO in the house. We had a CDI in the house.
Wow. Philips CDI.
We had a TurboGrafx.
16. Whoa.
We were ready to go with all sorts of stuff. My dad was super excited about people talking to you, using their voices in video games. So like East Book 1 and 2, when they actually narrate the intro, was such a big moment for us. We had the Sega CD. That's where we first got a love of Lunar as a series, which I'm very excited about coming back next month. So I love Lunar. And yes, TurboGrafx had some great other CD games. I loved a game called Last Alert, which was one of my first introductions to anime. Nice. And then Sega CD, I played Sewer Shark. I played, I can't even remember, Ground Zero Texas. I loved full motion video games in the 90s. Terrible acting, bad sets, but in a very approachable way. There was something endearing about how bad these things were from a video perspective, at least to me. I loved the Wing Commander games. I loved all of this stuff.
Love those. Oh my God.
Mark Hamill, Wing Commander.
Oh, yeah, don't get me started. Yeah, it was an era, Brad. It was an era. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm younger than you guys, but I still kind of remember that stuff, but I didn't know anyone that had any of that stuff. Anybody. Everyone's like, what's a 3DO?
Yeah, they were so expensive. And this is like, you had to really be an early adopter of tech. And the way Papa Hoeg was for you, Hoeg, that's what King David was for me. Because any new tech, he had it, and I would go over, or he'd have the Japanese version that would come out a year ahead, and I'd go over to see the PC Engine or the Super Famicom, and I'd get to learn what would come to the States eventually and be jealous. So that was my introduction. It was a fun time.
People should check it out. I played an adventure game starring Dennis Hopper. I played a fantasy kingdom building game starring Kirk Cameron. I mean, it was a wild time.
Remember Night Trap, Dana Plato.
Yes, Night Trap starred Dana Plato.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I remember seeing like the Jaguar in like Circuit City. I remember seeing stuff like that. And just being like,
looked like a black bidet.
Yeah. I didn't understand like what it really was. I was like, oh, new video game thing, cool, but like I didn't know how bad some of that stuff probably was, and thank God I never tried to buy one or anything like that. Cog, yeah. So what you're telling me is you guys have made poor investments since you were kids in the hardware.
But it was
always the
worth
wrong
it.
team.
It was worth it because there's still, with all the poor investments, you'll have those iconic moments. I'll never forget. I will admit this as a Sega kid, having a Genesis, and I'll never forget. King had the Super Famicom for the first time.
Oh, damn!
And I went over his house, and I saw the new Mario. And I remember seeing F-Zero for the first time. And, and Mode 7 and Pilot Wings. And I'm like, Genesis isn't doing this. This is 3D graphics to the next levels. The Nintendo has lapped them. I remember there's moments, and you go home and like, I'm looking at my Genesis like, you don't do that. like that's the first time I've really had like buyer's remorse, and I'm like, man, you see how the next generation of tech is evolving. It's moments like that. You need it. And you make some bad decisions, but there were still moments, bro. I even had don't laugh at me. I mean, Hoeg, you'll laugh at this. I was an Atari Lynx guy. Like that's how like I would buy. I know, Brad. I know it's bad. I'm always on the losing side. I'm always on the losing side. The screen is so small. That thing. Remember? But it was about the tech. It's about where gaming is going, and
I like that.
Yeah, it was a color handheld.
You're so committed to the future always. Yes. I love it.
That's me. Yeah. Whatever tech's going, I got to see where, and I got to be first and try it out. You've nailed it. That's literally me.
The tech needs the early adopters. We help subsidize the whole process.
Yeah. Man, the Lynx is so ugly. What an ugly handheld. Good
big
Lord.
And goofy. It's probably bigger than the Steam Deck now.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. Man, that's awesome.
We had the TurboGrafx Portable, which again is not going to be too exciting for people that are already owning a Switch, but was so exciting because the same cartridge that you put into the TurboGrafx, which was actually like a little credit card, went into the portable, and you could play whatever it is that you were playing on the go, except that it took, I think, like 8 AA batteries, weighed you down, and ate through those batteries in an hour.
And you were done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shout out to the Cog,
I was lucky in Super Nintendo and Genesis era. I was lucky enough to have both. So that was like the one time I was living it up. I remember I was like, oh, I got access to like of course there's other stuff I didn't have, but like if you had a Sega Genesis and a Super Nintendo, you were set so well.
Life was good.
But the next generation, it's like N64, PS1, stuff like that. I had those as well. But then we get to PS2, Xbox, Dreamcast, GameCube. Which one did you not have there, Cog?
I still had everything.
You had them all. Cool, nice.
Yeah, I still had everything. I remember because PS1 was huge for me.
PS1 was huge.
Yeah, that's when I betrayed Sega. I betrayed Saturn big time. I remember it was Namco was huge for them. They had Ridge Racer. That was just, oh my God, all perfect. I remember Tekken at launch.
Tekken will do it for you probably.
Tekken, Battle Arena to Shinden and Jumping Flash. Yeah. Those two, I was just like, okay, the way 3D graphic, again, you see the evolution. And don't get me to say, Saturn was great. It was just what I knew already, the 2D stuff. But I was like,
it was a lot of 2D.
So and Final Fantasy VII was over. I was like, it's over.
Yeah, it was over once that came out for sure.
Yeah. But I had all the stuff. I guess the only one, matter of fact, I know which one I regret. I wasn't a big GameCube guy.
GameCube was a weird console.
I had buyer's remorse early for that. Outside of the Resident Evil Zeros and some specific titles, I think I had a little remorse with that one. But I did have it.
Sure. GameCube was a weird console, but I do love like Eternal Darkness. Again, you said Resident Evil 4 at the time was exclusive to GameCube for a bit there.
It was, yes.
So I was excited about that. I was not a big fan of Mario Sunshine. I'm still not. Sorry, fans. But
thank you, Hoeg. Finally, you and me agree on something. It's my least favorite 3D Mario game. It's still good, but I think it's the worst.
Yeah, it's still a Mario game, but I did not love it. And I was excited about that one, and then that one let me down a little bit. So the GameCube, I feel like I have a little bit of a strained relationship with. But I do love that it's a little purple box with a handle. It's crazy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like
Nintendo being odd is still my favorite thing in gaming. So
True.
Be weird, Nintendo.
Yeah.
True.
GameCube was odd. I liked the GameCube a lot. I was at a good age for it. What was it? 2001 it came out. So I was a ninth grader in high school. So all the friends would come over. We'd play Smash, Melee, and stuff like that. We were still doing a lot of the local co-op with friends at that age. So
Nintendo was a champ of that.
Yeah. And 64 of that were like glorious.
Don't get me started. That's one of my favorite, just for that feature and the wrestling names. I would go. We would have the what is it? The Aki ones, the WCW, and the No Mercy. Oh my God, the Solve and the everybody. We just be playing those for hours. Or those boomerang controllers. Oh, I loved it
so much. All right, let's see. Let's get back on track a little bit here. Trying to remember what we were doing. Let's see here. This is from Omar Rosa. Dear Summoners, first time, long time. Just wanted to say, keep it up, backlogs. Everyone keeps complaining about their backlogs, but having a backlog full of games is arguably better than playing the latest and greatest. Here's why. Backlog games have already been vetted by other people and help guide games as to if it's worth time or not. Backlog games have probably been patched and are the best version. Lastly, you can get them on discount. I finally gotten to Death Stranding on my backlog, and I'm glad I waited for the director's cut version. What are your guys' thoughts on backlogs, and which games do you plan on playing the next year from your backlog? Thanks for all you do. Death Stranding, all right, dude. Very nice. Did Maddie
catch up for the sequel?
Yeah, did Maddie come around in Death Stranding now? I know he was playing it.
He's coming around. He's definitely liking it.
I told you guys. I told both of you. All right.
Yeah, you may have the last word on this one. No, for sure.
I love Death Stranding.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of it, right? Yeah.
I am very excited about the sequel.
Oh, yeah.
Death Stranding is one of the few games that I've actually had a legitimate emotional reaction to. The ending of that game got me actually emotional. And that's so rare for me personally. And that I will always respect it just for that. But overall, backlog, I have no problem with it. I know we make jokes on the internet about having too big of a backlog. I always love to have things to look forward to. And whether or not that's something that's coming out soon or something that I've already bought and have ready to go, doesn't matter much to me either way, other than the fact that when I hit something on my backlog or I realize I have something to play, it is nice to be like, oh, past Rick bought that for me and I don't have to spend money today on it. So that's nice. But I don't overall care that I have a lot of games to get through because I always do. Because this industry is fantastic and always puts out games that are of interest to me. I might not finish Kingdom Come, even though I talk about it and I think it might be generational by the time it's done in terms of how good this game is. I might not finish it this year because there's so much in it and I do not focus as much as some gamers do on one specific thing and then going to the next. So I'll continue to have it kind of operating as one of my games in rotation for a long, long time. But I already tried out Avowed. I'm going to try out Split Fiction and the Suikoden remasters this week. Speaking of reasons to give Konami props. So I'm excited about those projects. I'm excited about a bunch of stuff coming out and then Expedition 33 next month. So I will continue to play Kingdom Come Deliverance, but it doesn't bother me that I haven't beaten it yet. It doesn't bother me that I haven't beaten a lot of things that are otherwise available to me because I have checked them out. I know that I like them or basically how I feel about them, at least in the first couple of hours. And then they're available for me when we have lulls in releases, which used to happen more often, believe it or not. There used to be multi-month periods where you could say, I hope I have something to play, and you make do until the next big release cycle. That is not happening as much. January and February used to be a desert. Obviously not this year, hasn't been for some time. But it used to be a period of time after Christmas where you would have your Christmas games and November releases, and you would have them take you through to the spring and summer months. And that isn't the case anymore. So I don't mind having a backlog. Maybe that's because I'm more used to having those fallow periods, but it's never going to bother me. And I think, at least the way I take it online, is it doesn't really actually bother most people. It's just a kind of open meme that we have more and more games coming out. And if you have something like a Humble Bundle or other way to get really cheap games on Steam very often, you probably have a bunch of things that you're getting and you haven't even opened necessarily. And you get into that hundreds or even thousands of games and it looks scary. If you're anything like my brother, who does this very regularly.
Salute.
Yeah. Go ahead, Cog. No, go for it.
What to add, I mean, I kind of agree with what Omar is saying. You know, backlogs are, there are advantages of it. Obviously, I like what he said about vetting. I like what he said about, sometimes you're getting that best version. People already done put in the pain, that gave the feedback, and now you're the recipient of, wow, I didn't see what the issue was. Like, I didn't have that experience. It was great when I got to it. So I like that. And it's so many games. I really like what you said, Hoeg, in terms of being from the era of where we used to have those gaps, and we just be like, man, you would look forward to, what's the next thing a couple of months out because you had space between, but now there is literally no space and there's always something to play. So yeah, so many things. As far as me right now, it's just been, we talked about Brad, I've been my kind of ninja renaissance period in terms of going through and replaying a lot of these classic games. It's been so long ago as I get prepped for either new versions of it, like i.e. like a Ninja Gaiden 4 or a Shinobi or Art of Vengeance. So now I'm like kind of going through the backlog of replaying old things that I haven't played since a kid. It's been really fun. So that's kind of the mode I'm in right now.
And there's a small ninja game coming out in a couple weeks that some people will probably buy.
Yeah.
So that'll be exciting.
Yeah, we'll see how that does. Yeah, be very interesting. Okay, Hoeg, Civilization VII.
Yes. Not at all controversial of a game release. I'm excited to talk about this one because I love the Civilization series. I always have. It's one of the reasons that I think I got into economics and political science and learning about those things from a kind of educational perspective. Video games have had that effect on me throughout my life, but I love this game series, and 7 obviously takes a number of different paths to selling you on this kind of game. You've probably heard, if you know anything about this game, about the fact that leaders are now separated from their civilizations. So you can have Benjamin Franklin leading the Maya, or Queen Isabella leading the Roman Empire, whatever it might be. All these various different things that I do think take away a little bit from the fantasy of a Civilization game, but open up the design space for what you can do with these games. Like, the leaders have their own perks, they have their own benefits or downsides. You can combine that with any given civilization to create your own little thing that you have to deal with in a game. And now, because of the ages in this game, you have to pick essentially 3 different civilizations throughout. And so you have all sorts of mix and match possibilities with your leaders, with a meta progression system, with all of those civilizations working together. And I know that has bugged a lot of people. I know that the user interface has bugged a lot of people with respect to this game, but I will tell you from my personal experience that the game that they have designed in Civilization 7 is well worth playing. That doesn't mean that it's anywhere near perfect. And I think if you're interested in this game, it probably does behoove you to wait for what is anticipated to be the first major patch changing the user interface. I think this game came in a little hot with respect to that interface, and I think they know that. I think they knew it probably before it even released to the public, because this patch has been promised to change a bunch of things on the interface level to teach you more about how the game is played, and I think it is worth waiting for that. But this game has kept me up past my bedtime, which is not the usual course for video games right now for me. And I love to see that from these experiences. It has offered a lot of great strategy to go along with fantastic art, where each of the civilizations get their own units and own art approach, which is what I've wanted really since Civilization 2, where some of the stuff that you built got a little bit generic and you don't get kind of the differences between the cultures that make these things. I think it's an excellent game, but I don't blame anybody for looking at it and saying it's not where it needs to be, or it's not where it needed to be on release.
I got a question for you, because it's funny because Civilization, is it still being made by Firaxis Games?
It is.
Okay. The reason why I'm asking, because we talked earlier, you're 4X and I'm turn-based, and I feel like Firaxis is literally the champs in both of those worlds with said game with Civ and my beloved XCOM. So as an XCOM guy who's never played a Civilization game before, like, how is the onboarding? It looks a little intimidating, man. Can I jump in? How can I get down with this? Is it going to handhold me enough that I'm not completely overwhelmed?
Before you answer that, Hoeg, before you answer that, Brand Stark wrote in, hello, gentlemen. Question for Mr. Hoeg. Is Civ 7 beginner friendly?
Yes.
I've always wanted to play Civilization, but buying 6 with all the DLC during a Steam sale was very daunting. I would love to learn the game without needing to watch hours of YouTube tutorials. Thanks for reading. Take care.
I will say, as a person that's played all of the Civilization since at least 2, I don't know whether I played the first one or not. It's a while back. But it's difficult to say exactly how a new player is going to experience the series. I think this is a good jumping off point. This is a wild divergence from the first 6 games in the series. That said, I don't think that they do enough of a good job tutorializing or onboarding you right this moment. When I say that there's a bad user interface, it's not just that it's not artistically pleasing or it doesn't give you all the information that you would want. It also doesn't help you understand how the game is making the calculations it's doing, which I think is very necessary to that process. So one of the things that happens right now is rather than have tooltips or highlights that you expect from a modern PC game, you will go into the Civilopedia, which is their codex entries for everything, to go and look up what it is that just happened, what the unit is that you just fought, what building you just saw, to understand what it's doing, which is a perfectly fine process for me. It's probably a little bit too difficult. It's a little bit asking too much of the ordinary player trying to get into this series as it stands right now. My hope is that the new user interface will have more tooltips, more nested information to understanding what's happening under the hood. That said, starting in Antiquity with your little founder unit and then building your first city and engaging with only a couple of other barbarians and city-states around you and starting from that very beginning point is a lot different from dealing with your full-fledged 11, 13, 15 city empire and negotiating an entire war across the world. So it can look intimidating when you look at a kind of fully fleshed out game, a fully fleshed out campaign. You don't start there in any game of Civilization. You start with something that's very simple. You basically only have a couple of choices to make in those early turns, and then you grow into it. But there's a lot of stuff that's opaque right now, and it's opaque even to me, and I've played 40, 50 hours of this game at this point. And so I don't know that it's a great jumping off point for that purpose, but as for entering into the series, it's probably more approachable than Civilization VI with all the DLC, as posed by the commenter here, because that game was expanded twice, had multiple systems layered onto the original systems, which were already very kind of robust. And so that's a difficult jumping off on point. I think this is easier. It's built for a more modern approach. It has that meta progression for leader XP and various things that are happening that I think are more understandable for an audience of gamers right now than maybe people that were coming to it from only being Civilization players or being primarily Civilization players for the last couple of decades. And that's one of the reasons you're getting some of the negative reviews. So I'm of two minds there. I do think it is a streamlined approach to Civilization that is probably more approachable than other ones have been, but they don't do a good enough job telling you how the rules work right this second.
Well said. That's what I need to know.
Yeah.
Last question in terms of, you keep mentioning this new interface. So have they got like pushback or feedback and people, and they're like, hey, we hear you. We're going to make some new UI. It's coming soon. Is that what's happening?
Yes, if you go and look at the Steam page right now, I think the very first community update is, yes, 1.1 is going to have a new user interface. Like it's top of their list. It was the thing they got critiqued on the most. When you play a game like this, it's doing a lot of math under the hood, how much food you need to grow your city, how much production you need to build your building, whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. It has all of these different calculations. And one of the fun things that you can do in order to better understand how your empire is running and how to improve it is to go into that math and figure out what's happening under the hood. And right now, it does a very bad job of helping you down that road and understanding how it is that your city is even functioning. So the game works. The design works. It understands what it's doing itself, but it's very hard to interface with it right this second. And that needs to be fixed. I'm confident they will. I'm confident that Civilization VII, as a game design and as designed by this team, is a winner. I like what they have done, but it's not there right this second. It probably needed another month or two in the oven. It didn't get that. It's getting it right now. So as per the backlog comment earlier, probably a good one to add when you see that patch has gone up. But I want to tell you, playing the game and bothering to hit my head against the wall of figuring out what it's doing was well worth the effort for me personally, who loves this series, who loves history, who loves diving into these different civilizations and reading the historical notes on what the research means, et cetera, et cetera. So I loved it. I think the design is there, but it is right now wrapped in a newspaper when it should be wrapped in foiled gold. And so it'll get there. I'm confident in that. This is a very important franchise for 2K, but it's not there this moment.
You said one of the big features of this entry is the leaders can now be associated with different empires and stuff like that. Yeah. How's that been turning out for you this time?
I don't love the loss of fantasy aspect, right? I like storytelling. Part of what I like is in Civilization games, you'd have the story of Gandhi leading India from cavemen out into space and being attacked by the British Empire, whatever it might be, and having all these little stories that come out. They aren't as natural anymore because this design is more of a board game mix and match. We're going to open up that design space with all these choices rather than give you that fantasy of relating to something historical that you recognize. So I think from a board game standpoint, from a video game standpoint, it is a wider open design space, and I have come to appreciate that. But it does lose a little bit of that role-playing element. It does lose a little bit of that I'm leading a civilization to stand the test of time that Civilization 2 was so famous for. And so I think reasonable minds can differ on this score. They can say, I miss that fantasy too much, and I don't like this one. I think part of what you get as a negative reaction to Civilization 7 is that this is a wildly divergent approach to what this series has always been. And anytime you change that much stuff on a long-standing franchise, you are going to get some people that say, that's not my Civilization, right? When Star Wars goes off on its own direction, you get, that's not my Star Wars. When Civilization does that, you do get the same thing. Mm-hmm. I don't blame anybody for feeling that way. But I think there is goodness here, and I think that this team designed a smart game. It just isn't being shown as greatly as it could be right this moment.
Mm. So as an outsider who kind of like checks in and sees what people think about these games every now and then, I remember in some of the past entries, Gandhi was kind of known as being a menace or an infamous character. Who would you say is the infamous leader so far in the community?
I'm having trouble with the Philippines poet whose name is escaping me right now. It's Rizal, I think, who is in every single one of my games, making my life difficult so far, right? So there's like 25 leaders, and you'll play against 8 or so in any given game. I believe it's Jose Rizal. And I apologize, any historians or any family members of this person, if I'm getting that name wrong, but he leads countries, not the Philippines. He'll lead ancient Rome against you, or he'll lead the Incan Empire against you, or what have you. And he has proven to be a thorn in my side. The other one that has proven to be difficult is Machiavelli. That's really no surprise. He winds up causing all sorts of diplomatic issues and colonizing entire continents before you can even see them. And that becomes a problem because he's in your way and you need to win.
Who's your favorite to use?
I have enjoyed my game sessions with Confucius. He is a scientific focused leader, and I enjoy a scientific victory pathway in Civilization.
Have you been doing any multiplayer or anything like that?
I don't play Civilization multiplayer for the most part. I briefly thought about doing it with my brother. We get together to play games once a week or so, but we have not tried that yet, so no.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I know like Dustin and Ben, some of our friends did a LAN party actually at Dustin's yesterday, I believe. So that's really cool. I'm pretty sure Holly, Dustin's wife, killed everybody in it. She's very much into Civilization. So that's really cool. Let's see here. This is from Biohacker. Dear Bucky Brad, Hulk Hoeg and Captain Cog. Hey, right on brand with Cog's Crocs. Right on brand.
You didn't have to bring it up. It's too soon.
I see everyone is dabbling in Civ 7, which makes me want to get back into the game series. However, I feel the turn-based nature of Civ is lacking in comparison to the real-time strategy nature of Paradox games. Now, I don't know what any of these games are, so maybe you guys have to help me here.
Yes, so this is Europa Universalis 4, Crusader Kings 3, and Stellaris.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, I've not played any of those. Has anyone played both the Civ series and a Paradox series?
Yes.
How do these compare? Do you think the turn-based Civ is more appealing to the casual strategy fan?
I think if you called a Civilization fan a casual to their face, they might get very upset Gandhi style at you. But I think they're very different, much like I was just talking about with role-playing games, Japanese role-playing games, is that they can have similar kind of approaches, but Paradox's real-time strategy approach tickles different parts of your strategic mind than the turn-based approach does. You're doing a lot more calculating, a lot more math, a lot more figuring things out in a Civilization game than you are in a Paradox grand strategy game, which is a lot of...
Yeah, it's like APM stuff.
Moving people with sticks in blobs across countries and whatnot, or Crusader Kings, figuring out who to murder in their crib so that your daughter can marry the right person to take over the empire that way.
Oh.
But Those are good games. I'm not taking away from Paradox Grand Strategy. I like them a lot, but one of the things I like the best about them is the early game, which most mimics a Civilization or 4X game, which is that early colonizing period. That's what I think is the best part of Stellaris. I think in many ways it's the best part of a lot of their games. Europa Universalis is probably a little bit different there because it's modeling something different. But I think Civilization is most appealing to more people because it takes a very grand concept and makes it into a series of decisions that you can understand, right? Leading a civilization is impossible to kind of concept out at a human being's fundamental level. But you take that and you make that turns and you make that little food icons and you make 4 food icons into a giant 5 food icon. And you can understand taking your little cave people to space in a way that maybe the Paradox games are a little bit harder to understand. I have seen people crumble against looking at the borders of a Europa Universalis or figuring out who has the right of war in a Crusader Kings. It's trying to model some real historic attributes there. So I think it's different is really the answer to this question. I don't think one is more casual than the other. I would never consider a Paradox Grand Strategy game casual in any regard. But for the most part, I think Civilization, as much as they try to onboard people, similar to Monster Hunter, doesn't really have that casual approach at its heart. There are 4X games that are a lot simpler than Civilization that I play. There are ones that are focused on war. There are ones that are focused on diplomacy and other aspects. There are ones that are focused on tactical unit management. I love a game called Age of Wonders that not enough people talk about that allows you to have strategic battles with monsters and magic and spells and things while also playing a 4X game at the same time. And so I think there are different approaches to this. Civilization tries to be that game that appeals to the most people. So if that means casual to you, yes, it is a 4-quadrant appeal type game. It is the one that butters 2K's bread on this particular score. And so you are going to see that generalized approach. But I think there's a lot to love there. And there's certainly a lot to dig into in the Civilization series. They've never ditched that for just streamlined strategy.
Yeah. I always thought it was cool in these games, like when conditions aren't necessarily always just destroying your enemy. It seems like advancing in certain fields. I think that's a really cool idea and lends itself really well to the IP name, at least. I've always thought that was really cool, and I would like to see more games do stuff like that.
Yeah, the Civilization series is grand, right? I mean, it is the series where 2K puts a lot of money into it. From the very first full motion video, you see that they've got all the money and resources thrown at this game. It's one of the reasons the user interface sticks out so much, honestly, is that I've described it in other places as a user interface that looks gorgeous in many parts, and then in some parts looks like it is from a Civilization knockoff from like 2000, like little green bars without borders to indicate health and little static pictures of units that were taken in, I don't even know, the asset manager behind the scenes. And it just looks bad. And that's without talking about the information that it's not presenting to you. So I do think that the gripes about that are legitimate. And especially when you're going to change the design this much, that's going to hurt people understanding how the game even works. There are aspects of this game that I don't understand how they work. Like I'm still waiting for another codex entry or another user interface because there are pieces that don't work or I don't understand how they work that without that understanding, I can't fix in the way that I run my empires, which is not acceptable, right? That's not a good way to play a game. Right. But I certainly understand that there are a lot of moving parts with a Civilization game.
Yeah. Very complex game. Very cool, though. Happy to see it do well, or happy to see it going so strong after all these years.
I think it will do well. I think this will be a winner for them. They're going to support it for a decade, but there's no question it came in hot.
Yeah. Do you have any experience playing this on console, Hoeg?
I played the console version, Civilization Revolution, when they tried that a few iterations back. I have not played 6 or 7 on console.
Okay. Because I know they are on there. I'm curious how they play on a controller. I mean, I would play on a mouse. But it
strikes me that the 7 design is to be more accessible, fewer button presses, bigger buttons, that kind of thing for a console. I think it should be okay, but I have not played it myself.
Okay. Very nice. All right, Cog, it's time to talk about your beloved Shinobi. You've been playing Revenge of Shinobi and Shinobi 3, so we'll just lump them together.
Yeah, man. I'm diving into the Genesis Classics mode. Obviously, the hype train. You saw me on Twitter, Brad, when I saw Art of Vengeance. People were blowing up my timeline. What does Cog think? What does Cog think? He's the biggest Shinobi fan we know. What's going on? And yeah, I was just so pleasantly surprised to see the art style. And immediately when I saw Art of Vengeance, I'm like, okay, this is what I saw in that trailer. This is a love letter to hardcore Shinobi fans. So the first thing I saw from Art of Vengeance was the look of Joe Musashi, the main antagonist, is going for the Revenge of Shinobi look. And for many Shinobi fans, Revenge of Shinobi for the Genesis is considered the GOAT of the series. That is the pinnacle of, boss fights. You had the shurikens, you had the double flip move, and an amazing score by Yuzo Koshiro, who also did musical work for Streets of Rage, and why Streets of Rage is really beloved the way it is. So playing through Revenge of Shinobi, the first thing I noticed, I'm like, man, this game still holds up. It really does. And it's almost hilarious what they were able to get away with Sega during that period, because they literally had bosses that were everything popular in pop culture at the time. Yes. Like they had, like Rambo was a boss. A lookalike Terminator was a boss. Godzilla was a boss. Spider-Man at one point and Batman were bosses in Revenge of Shinobi. And what's funny is subsequent patches they lost the licensing from Sega, and then they had to change the characters and make small edits. Okay, because literally Spider-Man starts the boss fight, you fight him, and then Batman becomes the second part of it. But the game holds up so well. And one of the things that I really liked about Revenge Shinobi was the ending, and in terms of it was kind of brutal in the sense that you fought the boss who trapped the love of your life, and you had a timer. And in the sense that if you did not beat the boss in time, there were like these pillars that were coming down to crush her in the background. Right. So it added this whole mechanic of good ending, bad ending. In Revenge of Shinobi, which I thought was very interesting. But Revenge of Shinobi is considered a GOAT. Now, I will admit, playing Shinobi 3 Return of the Ninja Master after I beat it, what hardcore Shinobi fans will say is even though Revenge of Shinobi is the total package, Shinobi 3 actually has the better gameplay. That's when they introduced the running mechanic, the dive kick. And man, it's really good. Now, I will say, what is jarring now that I'm replaying Shinobi 3 is the music is not good. And I realize, there's no Yuzo Koshiro here. It's very drab. It doesn't hit the same. So that's what I'm noticing off the bat, just replaying these series. And I'm halfway through. There's cool things though, like clambering, which I think is really cool in Shinobi 3. Also, these stages where you kind of like you can get on horseback. There's other stages where you like you're riding the little the ninja board and all this stuff, and it's just really cool. So again, seeing the Art of Vengeance trailer, seeing that they're combining all the best elements from all the Shinobi games, and they seem to be inspired into making the new one. So he's got me going through it. But yeah, man, I've been loving my playthrough. They're still holding up, especially Shinobi 3's gameplay, and that I'm seeing a lot in Art of Vengeance.
Now,
so let's.
This is a 2D left to right beat 'em up type game, right?
Yes, 2D left to right. You throw shurikens, the enemies come out. It is significantly different from the arcade version, which also holds a special place in my heart because the arcade version was one hit, one kill. You could not get touched, and it was a more faster paced game. So what they did for the home versions of Revenge of Shinobi, they slowed it down and gave you a life bar. Right. But the balance, the trade-off was, okay, you're not going to have unlimited shurikens as if you did in the arcade version. So those are the trade-offs between the versions. But yes, like left to right.
I just wanted to make sure I was on the same page because I was not a Shinobi guy. I was a Strider guy.
Oh, Strider's
back
amazing.
in the day. I played a lot of Strider.
Love Strider. Yes. It's one of the deep cut ninja games people don't talk about. I remember that game.
Capcom,
the first 8 megabit cartridge, I believe, or 6 megabit cartridge to Genesis at the time. It was a big thing. It would be teraflops of the era. Like that was the first 6 teraflop game. I remember that was the marketing push for Strider.
I was always in the Ninja Gaiden camp more because that's what I had.
So good, so good.
They're all very fun.
Oh yeah.
Cog. So let's say Shinobi's coming up, the new one, looking nice.
Yes.
Someone's curious about the series, the history you're talking about Shinobi games right now. What would you recommend to them, like how to play these games? What's the best way to get a hold of them?
Best way to get a hold of them as far as, just as far as access or just play style? What's your question?
Could do access, then play style.
All right, so access, I personally would go through the Sega Genesis Classics. Now, there is some controversy because I believe Sega has now legally pulled them from marketplaces because they have a subscription service on route. So that I remember me and Maddie did a topic and people were like, hey, why are these games getting pulled from stores? So you may want to get you a physical copy just in case, because they are trying to lock them behind a future service that they plan on coming out, which kind of sucks. But I already purchased the digital versions of the Genesis collection. I had them on Xbox. I believe PlayStation had it. So I'm not sure. That's a good question. I'm not sure if they are actually still purchasable right now. They may be pulled off.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I can find them, but yeah, because it'd be cool to. I remember the Genesis collection. Yeah, that's great. So I don't know. Maybe if you're interested, try to get a physical copy of that if they have that available or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, physical would probably be your best bet. If I had to guess, I think they are probably pulled from digital storefronts at this point now.
Yeah. In terms of, I don't know, like a newcomer, do you have any tips for someone getting into the series?
Yeah. So first tip I would say with the Revenge Shinobi series is, because shurikens are limited, everyone used to do the old trick, which is like they almost had remember like Contra had like the up, the BA, whatever. Yeah. All Shinobi games had this thing where you would go to the shuriken section in the options, put it from I guess the default 60 shurikens to 0. You'd wait, and then it would turn into the infinite logo, and then you'd have a limited shuriken.
Oh, that's really funny.
Because it could get challenging if you run out of shurikens. So you got that. I would highly advise. There's two offensive ninja magics. One is kind of like a fire thing that destroys a lot of enemies, does damage on the screen. The other one's lightning. But there was one that it was lightning, but it almost gave you like a shield. If you are struggling, if you find yourself getting hit a lot, I would highly recommend that ninja magic to help you mitigate damage. And then they had a ninja magic called Fujin, which gives you higher jumping power. I wouldn't use that as often, but I would say use the lightning one that wraps your body to really help you out through tough segments if you feel like you keep getting hit a lot.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see here. Adamantium Priest wrote in. Shout out to Cog for jumping in on Shinobi 3. That's my childhood right there. Such a damn good game. The surfing level music, Chef's Kiss. Easily. Yes. In the top 5 games on the Mega Drive. Super excited for Art of Vengeance. Big love from York, England.
Yes, absolutely. Shout out to Adamantium Priest. Yes, the surfing level, that is one of the good tracks in Shinobi 3. Absolutely.
Okay, this is from Kazdan Risk. Hey, slippy, slimy summon ussies. Good lord. This one is for Cog. How stoked are you for the new Shinobi game? Also, did you ever play The Messenger? I got the platinum for it last year. It's a fun ninja platformer. Excited to hear your thoughts. Cheers and take care.
Yes, and yes, I'm super stoked for the new Shinobi game. Everything I've seen is a homage, a love letter. They are doing it. Even I believe in the pre-order bonuses, there's the original arcade Shinobi suit as a pre-order. So I'm like, okay,
that's cool.
They are doing deep cuts right now. I'm like, okay, they're paying attention. So you got that. And I think they're also on to introduce a boss rush mode. And again, Shinobi is known for amazing boss fights. So that's cool. As far as the Messenger, yes, I believe that's Sabotage Studios did it. My good friend Thierry, who is the developer from that game, one of my favorite interviews at PAX East. He's also the developer that led Sea of Stars.
Yes.
And so proud of that team. The Messenger is an amazing game. That is more, I would say, more closer to the Ninja Gaiden NES formula, where you have an 8-bit and 16-bit versions of that. What I love about that game, doesn't get enough credit, is the humor. The game is absolutely hilarious. Just talking to the shopkeeper in The Messenger is hilarious how much written dialogue they put in quips and stuff like that. Yeah, highly recommend The Messenger. I played it, finished it. That's one of the games I love to play on and go on my ROG Ally, by the way. Yeah.
That's a great dev. I like The Messenger and Sea of Stars. And you're right, Cog. I was super surprised by how much writing is in The Messenger. You don't expect that from a game like that.
Absolutely. Oh my God. And they've got even fun DLC content. Yeah. Shout out to Sabotage too. I love the director of that game. He is a passionate gamer. Yeah. Shout out to Thierry from Sabotage.
Man, I'm looking at Shinobi games, the list of games that came out. Mm-hmm. And I think the last game was Shinobi 3D from 2011.
Yeah,
it's been a minute.
Bro, it's been a minute. I thought I would never get another
Shinobi. I was like, the last game I played was Shinobi on PS2. And I was like, there's probably been quite a few since then. Nah, there's been like 2 other ones maybe.
That's it. Yeah.
Well, as a non-Shinobi guy, I do have to say that trailer did impress me. That visual style is really cool.
So I'm hoping. I see that's what we need. I need Hoeg to get in on this. They're going for classic Revenge of Shinobi look. And the fact that you like that bodes well. I was like, yes.
It looks neat.
Nice.
All right. Hey, Cog, how do you feel about Shadow Dancer, aka Shinobi 2? For me, it's a game I have a real soft spot for, as it was the first Shinobi I ever played, as well as being a very early gaming experience. Revisiting it when I was older, I appreciated the vibe and atmosphere. The one that kills both you and the enemy approach, and of course, the dog.
This is a deep cut. A lot of people don't know about Shadow Dancer. Yeah, Shadow Dancer was between Shinobi and Revenge of Shinobi. So Sega had an arcade version. So basically, Shinobi was extremely successful. Arcade Shinobi was extremely successful. They made the sequel to it where you are Shinobi. Now, the lore gets a little weird because it's not the main protagonist. It's someone else, supposed to be a son or something. But he had a dog, and the dog would basically be used to, basically distract armored enemies. It was a dope mechanic. Now, I will admit, the Genesis version of Shadow Dancer is superior to the arcade.
Oh.
I highly recommend that game. That game is a very deep cut. I'm shocked that it never took off, but here's again where Art of Vengeance comes through with the W. If you look at the trailer, there is a stage with the dog where you ride it or you have it for maybe a stage. So they are paying homage to Shadow Dancer in some form with Art of Vengeance, at least on a stage aspect or one stage aspect. So yeah, I love Shadow Dancer. Shadow Dancer is really cool, man.
That's cool.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what they do with it. Yeah, that's a very deep cut.
Now I feel like I got to play the Shinobi games before the new one just so I get all the references and stuff like that.
Yes.
All right. Now, I have to admit I'm confused, Cog.
Okay, break it down.
I don't know this series history, but the discussion point was that you've played Revenge of Shinobi and Shinobi 3.
Yes.
But you just said that this Shadow Dancer game is Shinobi 2. So how is Revenge of Shinobi not Shinobi 3?
Great question. Technically, it is the sequel to Shinobi. However, Sega themselves do not consider it canon. They have rewritten the story 2 or 3 times and the antagonist. So Joe Masashi is the antagonist of Arcade Shinobi. Joe Masashi is the antagonist of Revenge of Shinobi. When Shadow Dancer Arcade came out, they told us it was Joe Masashi. Then it changed into it's his son. And so it's a Sega problem. And I attribute that to it didn't take off in popularity. And thus they kind of, I don't say retcon, but they definitely don't look at the Shadow Dancer series as a mainline continuity, unfortunately. So
it was a different time.
Yeah.
I mean, there are 2 Metal Gear 2s.
Oh yeah.
So by letter of the law, it is the game that preceded Arcade Shinobi, but it's not considered the sequel like Revenge of Shinobi. It's weird. I know.
I just wanted to make sure I didn't get confused there because it sounded like there were 2 Shinobi 3s.
It's a good call out. It's a very good call out.
Nice. All right, Cog, we're getting close. So it comes out. The new one's what? August, I think it comes out.
Yes. I pre-ordered it on 3 different systems. I'm ready to go. I'm supporting the developer.
Yes, sir. That's what I like to hear. Okay.
That one feels like a Switch 2 game to me. So I have to wait for the Switch 2 announcement and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Switch 2 because I felt perfect on the go, and obviously I got it on the big boy system. Oh yeah, same. I'm in the same pocket as you, Hoeg.
Okay. All right, boys, time for a final game. Like a Dragon, Pirate, Yakuza, in Hawaii. Hoeg, I think I played like 4 hours of this game.
I think I'm at 25.
Okay.
I think I'm at 25. That might be a pause game where I left for an hour or 2. I don't know, but I think that's what the clock in the bottom corner says for me. This is my game of February. I have come back to this game time and time again. I love the Yakuza series. Let's start there. I loved Infinite Wealth. It was going to be my game of the year right until the end of the year. It finished second in my tally. But Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii is both a title that I love for its ridiculousness and also a place that I love. One of the reasons I loved Infinite Wealth is that I tend to like the story beat that you see most prominently in sitcoms and things where the gang goes on vacation. And Infinite Wealth was, we're taking Yakuza on the road and we're going to visit Hawaii. And this is that again, only starring Goro Majima instead of Ichiban or Kiryu or anyone else that you're familiar with in Yakuza. So it takes a wackier bent, but it still has all the stuff that I love the most from the modern day Yakuza series, which are all these systems and really in-depth mini games and things to interact with that all build into some kind of main power structure. So in Infinite Wealth, you had the Animal Crossing Island, you had the Pokemon battles. In Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii, you have an entire sequence of fighting pirate ships out on the water, as well as some of the stuff from Infinite Wealth, and now hunting bounties across Honolulu and the new pirate headquarters. And it's basically a version of the Yakuza series back in the beat 'em up days. So it's a Gaiden game. It's not that Ichiban Dragon Quest turn-based role-playing game style. So you do lose the job system from Infinite Wealth, but it is a game that basically has all of the side quests and wacky Yakuza content that you could ever want with less of a focus on the central story. To some extent, I miss that. I love the melodrama and soap opera of Yakuza. I think they're great. I think they're well written. I enjoy them every time. That's not here. Doesn't mean there isn't some melodrama. I don't want people to think that there's no story. You're not just Goro Majima picking up people and adding them to your pirate crew, although you'll be doing that 90% of the time. There is some melodrama. You know the musical score that they play when people are having very emotional moments in the Yakuza series. And more importantly, it's just as wacky as you would expect, both from the title and like the title card that you see if you buy the game. I am on a neon painted pirate ship with Japanese neon signage and playing Sonic the Hedgehog theme music while I go and hunt down Yakuza that are pretending to be pirates off the coast of Hawaii. I don't know what more you could want from video gaming. I want video games to be this strange and weird more often. The video game space is capable of giving you whatever you want. The old Origin motto used to be, we create worlds. Video game developers can create whatever they like, and too many of them are focused on recreating our world in some form or fashion, in my opinion. And this is not that. This is a crazy fever dream of a game, but with all of the stuff that you love from the Yakuza series. A fun combat system, though, like your Monster Hunter comments from earlier, Brad, maybe tuned a little easy. You don't really have to engage with it at a maximal level, so you can roll through most fights by tapping the square button to your heart's content. Similarly, the pirate fights are not as in-depth as something like Skull and Bones, but that's all that game is doing. And so I liken it to the Falcom games that I love so much, the Aces of the world, the Trails games perhaps, that have some good writing, that have some drive in the systems that are putting you forth into the universe, but aren't as melodramatic or serious or important as a Final Fantasy storyline or plot. That's not what they're focused on. It's just a good time. It's one of those party in a box games where you get there, you listen to some cool music, you go shoot some pirates off the coast of Hawaii, you discover a buried treasure that may or may not give you the power to call in ghost sharks to fight your enemies, and you have a good time doing it. So I love this game. I am actually, even as much as I loved Infinite Wealth, a little surprised at how much I love this game, because I was told in early reviews that this one was maybe not as impressive as something like The Man Who Erased His Name. I actually wind up liking this one better than that one, primarily because I like ships and sea travel and Hawaii so much. And so reasonable minds can differ. Your mileage may vary, however you want to frame that on this game. But if you're looking for an old school beat 'em up brawler game with a lot more going on under the hood with respect to systems to build and crew to find and pirates to hustle and treasure to discover and unbury, this is the game for you. So if any of that sounds good to you, I don't know what's wrong with you. I can't help you. But if any of that sounds good for you, I love this game.
My biggest complaint with the game right now, Hoeg, from what I played, like I said, I'm still early in the game, but is kind of like the actual act of being on the ocean and sailing around. Like when you go to an island, it just kind of loads you in onto it. And so far, what they've all been is just kind of like a combat arena. Does it ever go beyond that? Like do you get any like more exploration of the game? That's my biggest qualm is I don't feel like as much. I mean, like I was hoping I could jump off the boat or something like Black Flag and swim in the water or anything like that. And getting on the island is just kind of like loading you into a little box to fight some guys, it seems like.
Yeah, the islands are, the closest analog is that they are the procedural dungeons from Infinite Wealth or from Like a Dragon, Yakuza 7. They really made it difficult to reference these things with their titles. But that's the procedural dungeon kind of approach. Yes, they have combat arenas. They also have kind of little mini runs that'll have what appear to be procedurally created sections where you'll fight and then get to a boss fight and those kinds of things. But yes, they're just that procedural dungeon area. They're designed to get you treasure and to fight various other pirates that you might see on the seas. But they use that system to also have a pirate arena system and then more pirates to fight in a different kind of minigame is the wrong term for it, but a different structure to advance down a different power loop to get you different things to go back and feed into your main power progression in the game. So I love that. The Yakuza series has done this now for a number of games in a row where they have all of these different kind of approaches that you can take to gain power and they all feed back into your main through line through the game. This does that again. It's just not as compelling because as much as I like Majima, and as much as I love them making fun of essentially the JRPG conceit of waking up with amnesia, and the writing is very on the nose for he doesn't just have amnesia like you have for a kind of standard JRPG protagonist. He can't remember anything about his past life at all. So he has people telling him that he's a Yakuza and all these various things based on his tattoos. And he's otherwise telling folks in conversation that he doesn't remember things. But you get all the bonding elements. You get all the things that worked so well in the prior two Yakuza games, just without that very dramatic through line that honestly probably wasn't the strongest part of Infinite Wealth at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It was very strong in Like a Dragon, and it was very strong in Yakuza 0 and some other aspects of the franchise, but I didn't think that was the compelling part of Infinite Wealth.
I had a quick question to reference as a person who's been playing the series, and me and you both, played Infinite Wealth and beat Infinite Wealth. I really loved it. Without spoiling too much, being at this, it feels like a side, like an offshoot with Majima. Is there any references of post-Infinite Wealth? Do I get any narrative? Okay.
There is.
Yes, this takes place almost exactly a year after the events of Infinite Wealth conclude. Okay. So they elide it. They don't directly say this is what happened in Infinite Wealth. But one, you can pick up on it if you've played it. And two, even if you haven't played it, you'll know things like who the big bad was in Infinite Wealth.
Yeah. Okay.
And you'll get
and stuff.
The side stories, particularly on Honolulu, tend to be sequel stories to what you did in Infinite Wealth. And that doesn't take away from playing Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii, because you're not really going to recognize that so much, and they don't need the backstory of what happened in Infinite Wealth. But most of those side stories are people that you met then, and they'll talk about meeting the guy with the afro, or the person with the bird nest for hair, or they'll reference Ichiban in various ways.
Gotcha, okay.
And so that's pretty cool. It feels like you get to go back to a place that you really enjoyed being if you liked Infinite Wealth as much as I did. And that's its own value in this game. Okay. But yeah, you're not going to lose a lot if you haven't played Infinite Wealth. I got that question in another venue, and it doesn't require you to know exactly what happened there, even though you will probably figure it out at the end.
Okay.
This is from Tom. Hey guys, I've been wanting to get into Yakuza for years, but as a grown-ass man with 2 kids and a demanding job, gaming time is at a premium. So I've been hesitant to start huge games. Always wanting to go for the plat doesn't help either. However, I saw Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii is a fairly short game and saw people who got their plat in around 30 hours. Is this game worth playing without any context, or is it just removed too much of the charm? Thanks, Tom.
No, I think this is a great entry point for people that want to try the Yakuza series. I really do. It doesn't require a lot of context. You're starting with a character that doesn't remember anything, so you're being told everything you need to know as you go through. And while I would highly recommend Infinite Wealth and Like a Dragon in particular, and I think they're on sale pretty regularly right now, I think this game is one that you can absolutely play. I said that I'm 25 hours in. I'm playing not exactly a completionist run, but pretty close to one. I like to see all the side content at least. So I'm running pretty long on my time. I think you could probably beat this game in 15 hours if you were trying to buzz through it. And so this is an Infinite Wealth or Like a Dragon type setup, but condensed. You can see the power advancement that would have maybe taken 20 hours you can now do in like 2 or 3 in this particular version of events. So I do think it is a very welcoming game. Mm-hmm. You are going to get a little bit of a wackier take than even traditional Yakuza games, which are already pretty wacky. And this is kind of taking that up to 11. This is taking that wackiness to as high as it can go. It really doesn't have a lot of the serious melodrama to kind of balance that out. So the one thing I would warn people of is if you fall in love with this, that's great. This is not the standard tone of the series. If you hate this because it's too wacky, that's great too. That's fine. But understand that the main entries are not quite this crazy on the regular basis.
Got it. Hey, quick question.
Yeah.
Does it have any wild like difficulty spikes sometimes that the Yakuza's used to, and then you got to grind a bunch of dungeons and stuff like that or whatever? Have you encountered any of that stuff yet?
I would say the difference between 3 cross swords and 4 cross swords and then 5 cross swords, that they are pretty significant pop-ups. But while you do quote unquote have to grind in this, the grind is shortened to just like the overall length of time in the game is. So it's not really a grind where you might have had to do 3 or 5 run-throughs of a procedural dungeon before. You basically have to take the ship out, do some shooting, make some money, and get the upgrades for your ship. That kind of thing.
Got it. Okay. Cool.
Okay. All right, boys. Let's end the show with some questions from the audience.
All right.
Every Saturday, I post a thread on our Patreon calling for your submissions. We do this for all of our shows, by the way. So if you want to send in any comments to our shows, keep an eye out on our Patreon for the show's respective threads. All right. This is from Cormissy. Hello, folks. Currently going through a 3-year relationship breakup. Feeling pretty shit right now. So want to find a new game that I can jump in and out of to kill the evenings. Something like Monster Hunter or Final Fantasy XIV Online. Anybody or anyone able to recommend series worth giving a shot? So
I'm not entirely sure what the parameters there are because Monster Hunter and Final Fantasy XIV are very different games, but
maybe time sync.
I would recommend Yakuza as a series, and I would recommend Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii. Like I said, it is a fun in a box type game. You play cool tropical tunes while you're running around on your Segway, solving ridiculous problems for people, like the fact that one of the pirate ships is losing all of its crew because they don't have the proper corporate consulting. I mean, it's a crazy game. Mm-hmm. I think it will eat time. It's certainly eaten my time, and I feel very bad for anybody going through a really difficult breakup. That's a terrible time. So I think Pirate Yakuza is probably my recommendation as of right now.
That's a good one. That's a really good one.
If the criteria is time sync, I would say if you missed out on Metaphor, give that a shot.
Ooh,
you can, if you like JRPGs and you want to kind of dive into something a little different from Atlas.
That's a long one.
That's a long one. Yeah, you have a lot of time to think about relationships.
It might depress you more,
but at least you might have thoughts of a utopian society and how it should be. So that's what I'd give you.
Yeah, I'd recommend just any kind of longer game you can get lost in the world super well. Like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, you can get lost in the world pretty easily. That's a really cool one.
Yeah.
So anything pretty long like that.
I've had nights evaporate to Kingdom Come, certainly.
Yes.
And as for other games we've talked about, like I said, Civilization VII, the whole series really is that type of game that they call One More Turn, where you just don't even realize what time it is. Thankfully, they have a clock on these games, usually, so you can go and make sure that you're not killing your workday, productivity or otherwise. But yeah, those types of games are great. Monster Hunter, Final Fantasy, not in the strategy realm, so I won't necessarily say you're going to love it. So I'd recommend Pirate Yakuza, but I think Metaphor is a great choice. I think Kingdom Come's a great choice. Those are newer games. If you want something older, really any of the Persona series can work. Persona 3 Reload was really strong.
Yeah, there's a lot. Now's a good time to get into like a series that you've been wanting to, especially a long one. Like if you want to get nuts, you do the entire Yakuza series now. You're going to be set for a long time.
Oh, yeah. What?
Yeah, that's a lot of content. Highly recommended. Yep. They're all great.
Yeah.
Even the ones people don't like are still great.
Yeah. All right. Let's hear from Whiskey here. Hey, Brad. I haven't had a chance to watch your Pokemon streams and wanted to ask who your starters were for each game. And why is Greninja the best one? Cheers from Compton. So I started with Gold because I've played Red and Blue before when they came out. I started with Totodile. He's that little water alligator little guy. He was cool. Then what was the one after that? It was the frog guy. I forgot his name from Emerald. You guys knew who I'm talking about, though, listening. I forgot his name. I named mine Slippy, but I forgot. I always name my main one a different name, so I forget their actual name a lot of times.
Love that.
Then what was after? What's the Pokemon after that? Is it Black and White?
I didn't play Pokemon Emerald, so I don't know, but I've got Trico, Torchic, and Mudkip.
Yeah, that's the one I started with. I usually do water ones usually. I played Pokemon, what was it? Ruby DS. No, it was Diamond and Pearl. So then Pokemon Diamond I'd played let me look up the starter I got real quick. It was Piplup. It was the little penguin guy because he turns into a badass penguin. Then it was Pokemon Black, and I did a fire starter, which I never really did. His name was, he's like a little pig guy. I forgot his name, but I named him Ganon. Then now I'm on Y, and I picked, I'm blanking all these
It looks like starters. Black White was Tepig, was your fire pig.
Tepig, yeah. Okay, then now I'm on Y, and it's Greninja that evolves into Greninja, because Greninja is an awesome Pokemon, so.
That he is.
Yeah, I usually do water types, usually. But sometimes deviate. Depends if the water type, I think, looks like shit, so I don't know. If I think they're ugly or something like that. So, yeah.
Sometimes they get you with the evolves.
Yeah, sometimes I check out the evolve. They look different than they sometimes form into something ugly later on. I'm like,
yep.
Oh, man.
Been there. Had to explain that to my daughters.
Yeah.
Sometimes just how it goes.
Yeah. Now, Cog, I know you're afraid of being on the playground, but have you ever tried a Pokemon game?
I have not.
Okay.
I have not tried a Pokemon game. Just the appeal just wasn't for me, but maybe one day. I don't know.
Maybe that could be another goal for your road to Tokyo.
I will admit the physical, what is it? The AR one that was a craze. I was tempted. I was tempted. I saw everybody doing this thing outside.
It was a moment in time.
Yeah, I came very close to like, okay, I got to see what this is. That one I would probably still try just to see it.
It's funny when Pokemon Go really took off. I was getting questions that were like, "Can they arrest me if I go into a graveyard and whatnot?" And it's like, okay, hang on, this isn't my area, but don't do that.
Don't do that. That was a thing, man. Just to see it in the real world. That was kind of cool. I have to admit.
Yeah, it was cool.
Mm-hmm.
It was very cool. Okay, this is from Sweet Jones. I have a closing question for Hoeg that I've wanted to ask him for a long time. My question revolves around the licensing of brands for things like cars and music in video games. It's my understanding that licensing is the reason some games, Gran Turismo, The Getaway, etc., struggle to be remembered or re-released. My interest was piqued when Namco offered an Ace Combat 5 port for PS4 for pre-ordering Ace Combat 7's digital version. Ace Combat 5 has licensed planes from Boeing, Grumman, etc., music from Puddle of Mud, which are all still in the port. Many assumed that the game would be offered a la carte after AC7's release, but it never was, which Namco clarified it wouldn't be once people started asking, but never said why. I'm assuming because it's some loophole that negates from having to pay licensing fees, basically give it away for free, or because it was pre-order only. So they know exactly how much they would have to pay for licenses. Could Polyphony Digital give away ports of Gran Turismo 1 as a pre-order bonus for Gran Turismo 8? And what does it mean for Intergalactic with Porsche, Adidas, etc.? Will it be difficult for remasters or remakes for future PlayStations? Or will we have to change things like Death Stranding did with the Monster Energy drink? Thanks for all the entertainment and insight.
I do miss the Monster Energy drinks in Death Stranding.
Me too.
But I also miss the Verizon ads and Alan Wake. I'm a weirdo. The answer to this question is going to be the typical lawyer answer of it depends on all of this. But that's because intellectual property licensing is all based in contract, right? We're not looking at a statute. We're not looking at a set number of rules that we can use to analyze this. This depends on what Namco in respect of Ace Combat or Sony in respect of Gran Turismo actually licensed into their games. It also depends on the risk averseness of their corporate counsel, because some of these things that are not the focus of the games, in this particular case, we're talking about airplane games and car games, so this is the focus, but some of these things that are not the focus can be used without direct licensure in certain cases, as we see with things like Call of Duty using Jeeps and whatnot. Right? So you don't have to license everything if it is otherwise evocative of real scenarios and whatnot. There's a whole bunch of intellectual property rules that I've talked about at some level in virtual legality, but they're honestly too complex for a YouTube video of any kind. And in this particular case, it would depend on the contracts. What I suspect from the description of what happened with the Ace Combat 7 license is that there probably was a right that was given to make Ace Combat 5 using these licensed properties, and that the prohibition in that contract for when the license expired prohibited the sale of additional products using those licensed references. And so Sony at some level, or I'm sorry, Namco at some level thought, as long as we package it with a different product, we can say we're selling the other product and we didn't sell this first product. And so these licensors won't get mad at us. Maybe that happened appropriately. Maybe it didn't. Maybe Namco was right. Maybe they weren't. We don't have the contract to look at in front of us, so we don't know for sure. But that's how these kinds of things happen. Is you have the business person at Namco say, this is the license we have. It's expired. How do we get this out to people's hands? We want it to be out in people's hands. And they say, all right, well, if we package it this way, at bare minimum, we'll have a hook to hang our hat on if the licensor comes and complains. And we don't know whether they did or not, but we do know, at least from this description of events, that Namco doesn't believe they have the right or doesn't want to take on the risk of selling the product separately. So could Sony do the same thing with Gran Turismo 1 and 8? Maybe. Depends on the terms of their contract. And it depends on the risk that the Sony counsel sees as happening if they do that package giveaway, and whether or not Sony business wants to take on that risk or not. I'm sorry that that's the answer. This is why lawyers get in trouble when you're asked questions like this. But it is really the truth of the matter that it lives in the contract. And without seeing the terms of what that license is, what was licensed and what you can do with it, we don't know for sure.
Yeah. Well, man, I want those old Gran Turismo games now. I would love to have those.
I know.
Damn. All right. Thank you, Hoeg, for that in-depth answer. Because I don't know either. I have no idea.
Yeah, it's all contract.
Well, no, I love that. I love that setup. I love that question. So thank you so much, commenter, because I love thinking about these things myself. One of the reasons my series exists at all is because even before I was a lawyer, I like to think about stupid stuff, how stop signs get selected for various intersections and not other ones, how these various rules set up that we abide by to live through society. And these are the kinds of things that would jump out at me. Why was I able to get Ace Combat 5 if I pre-ordered Ace Combat 7, but not elsewise? That's the kind of thing that if I can help answer, I'd love to do.
Awesome.
As for, there was a follow-up question too, right? It was about Intergalactic.
Yeah, they were asking, what does that mean for them with like Adidas and stuff?
The follow-up to that is you hope that when Sony is negotiating those licenses, they have the temerity to go and make sure that they're covered for at least probably an additional generation. You can say successor to the PlayStation. You can describe it in various ways in a contract that doesn't require you to say it's a PlayStation 6 or a PlayStation Quantum or whatever it might be in the future. But you probably can't extend that forever because the licensor has as their property where they get revenue, the licensing out of this. So they want to have some limited time that they can know that they're exposed on this particular ground and not infinitely into the future. So you have two negotiating parties, each seeking their own benefit. You hope that Sony doesn't allow for this licensure without coverage of at least the immediate term, if not the medium term. You're probably not going to be safe forever and ever. But in all honesty, you're not safe forever and ever for any number of reasons on any of this stuff. So thinking about the intellectual property probably doesn't make sense. And if you're Sony's lawyers, it probably doesn't make sense to negotiate the farm away on this particular question if you don't even know what the future holds 2 generations down the line. So
right.
I say reasonable lines can differ a lot, but that's the kind of conversation that happens with lawyers and business folks behind the scenes all the time is we can go ask for this, but it's going to cost us a lot of money. Is that
Money.
worth it to you?
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Next question here is from Ronnie Barrier. Hello, Summon Duke Cog, Legal Guardian Hoeg, and Brad. All right. How do you feel about Game Pass lending itself to the disposability of video games? I own all the platforms as a necessity because I work in the industry. And even when games come to Game Pass, there's a mental block that makes me want to play on a different platform. I don't know if it's a fear of the game being removed from the service or a feeling that I'm renting rather than buying, leading to a lack of personal investment. But even when I'm searching for something to play, I'd rather buy it somewhere than browse all the games available in my Microsoft subscription. Do I just have a buying addiction? Paralyzed by too many choices? I'm curious to how you feel about this service. Also, congrats on all your recent success, Hoeg. Glad to see you're thriving. You too, Cog. Brad, you're fine too, I guess. All right, dude. This is my show, Ronnie. All right? Relax.
You're taking strays.
Yeah,
no.
Relax, Ronnie. All right. What do you think, Cog, about this as a Game Pass enthusiast?
That's a good question. I mean, for me, yeah, obviously Game Pass operates differently for me because I look at it almost like as a gamer, it mitigates risk for me.
Yeah.
Because there are times where, look, there's just so many games that come out. And, you know, you have to be honest. I mean, I'm fortunate, you know, yes, I can get anything I want, but do I want to be, I need to be practical. I shouldn't be buying everything that comes out. And I think what Game Pass really helps me out is that when something is in the service, you know, there are a lot of times that kind of influence me to say, you know what, there's no excuse for me not to try it with this service that I have. And then I kind of put myself in a situation where I'm like, man, if it wasn't in this service, I wouldn't have tried Kunitsugami Path of the Goddess. Like that was one of the major surprises last year that I caught myself. I'm like, if it wasn't in this service, would I have gone out and just bought that game? And I think it does give it a level of exposure that it normally wouldn't have got to compete next to, I guess, or whatever, a Call of Duty or whatever the big, you know, franchise. When I see, you know, the Game Pass list of the week, it incentivizes me. Now, to Ronnie's question, I do understand where he's coming from. I want to be empathetic to that because what he's saying is kind of like he's paralyzed by the choices. And, you know, then there's people who say, hey, you know what, I'm really not into subscription services and I necessarily want to own it. And I guess my counter to that is what I usually do is I remember Naraka Blade Point came to Game Pass and I was like, wow, this is really cool. I like this, but I'm loving this so much. I'm going to buy the deluxe edition and I really want to support just in case in the event it goes out of the service after a year or 2 years. So, you know, your mileage may vary. The last point I will say reminds me of, don't laugh, Hope, but the bootleg era of Xbox 360 and PlayStation where me and Saul would have access to everything. And then I'd have all these discs of games.
Dreamcast.
And then you're not really, Dreamcast was another, yes. Like, and you're not playing anything. And I know some people, they get paralyzed by all this choice. There's just so many, I don't know what to commit to. So they rather just buy something and play it once at a time, finish it complete. And I totally empathize with that person. I think for me, it's more about Game Pass helps me see something that get visibility on a storefront that might not never normally get that. And I play so many games like that I ended up loving and, you know, Inside and all my little artsy-fartsy games. And I'm trying to think of another. There's so many games I know that I would not. I'll tell you one right now. I got a co-sign. The game that is extremely, I'm hyped. One of my most anticipated games for the year is this game called The Alters.
Yep.
I wouldn't have known of that once I saw his Game Pass. I'm like, oh, I have to try it. It looks amazing. And you're talking to future versions of yourself on a timeline or how your life could have differentiated. I think it's awesome. So again,
it's a great demo. You should definitely try the demo.
Oh, I definitely did. Oh, it's amazing. It's one of my most anticipated games of the year. And again, I wouldn't have known about it if it wasn't for Game Pass. So yeah, your miles may vary depending on your gaming habits and buying habits.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I don't think that this person has a buying addiction. I think that there is a certain amount of concern about the way streamers move things on and off with enough notice or not. And so it does feel better, even though we talk about sometimes losing licenses and only buying a license when you purchase a digital good and various things in virtual legality and elsewise, that it does feel more solid. It feels more safe to have purchased that license to a game than to be waiting for the streamer to take it off when you least suspect it. Now, I tend to have this happen to me more with movies and television, where if something's on Netflix that I really like, or something's on Peacock or something else that I really like, I will look to see if I can buy a license to it on what used to be called Vudu, what I think is currently called Fandango at Home. Thanks for making that easier. But I do tend to lock in that library when I see sales on things because I prefer feeling like I do have access to that when I want it, even though I would otherwise have the access on the streamers. I don't like to be locked into the streamers' mercurial natures. Their licenses failing and deciding that they want a tax write-off, whatever it might be. I don't like to be locked into that sequence. So that happens more with passive entertainment for me. But even on the video game side, I have kind of a unique situation, which is that right now, with my left hand still recovering, I play better on the PlayStation. I am sorry, Xbox. It's just a bigger controller. It's just a little bit harder for me to use. And so I play better with the PlayStation controller. So for games like Eternal Strands, as a for instance, that's a Game Pass game. I played it on Game Pass. I made sure I liked it, said I want to buy it, and I bought it on PlayStation. So sorry about that, Microsoft. But that's some of what I've been doing now. I use Game Pass similarly to COG as a kind of indie game filter. I think that Xbox and their Game Pass team has a pretty good curation kind of eye and tends to like interesting things in a way that I wouldn't know are interesting on the outside. So I got to play Dungeons of Hinterberg on Game Pass, and I really enjoyed that. I got to play Kinitsugami on Game Pass. I really enjoyed that. I knew Eternal Strands was coming because Travis at IGN had done the first look for it and had talked it up to us over at the Bitcast. Yes. But I didn't know I would like it as much as I did until I got to try it on Game Pass. So I like it for that purpose. I've always liked it for that, even more than the AAA releases. Don't get me wrong. I like to get the Microsoft AAA releases as part of the Game Pass subscription, but its highest value for me personally, as someone who really likes indie games but has 300 release a day, is to get those 5 indies as the ones that Microsoft thought were important enough or big enough or valuable enough to put on their Game Pass service, and that's been super useful to me.
Yeah. I think Game Pass is great. It's just, I never at a point with games where I'm just like flipping through games, like, I don't know what really to play. I just have so much to play already, and it's something always on my mind to play. It's just not for me. For some things, like I got it for a month to try out indie, and it was great. I'll eventually buy indie probably when I get to it, just because buying, I usually I have so much stuff to play. I feel like I'd rather just own it and just get to it when I have time to get to it and want to get to it actually, and not have to worry about I only got this certain amount of time left in subs and all that kind of stuff. So I prefer buying it, but I do think there's total value, like you guys are saying, all the examples, checking out games for the first time and just seeing them there. A nice, easy way to access a lot of these games. I think it's great. But I do wonder, if it maybe lowers value for some of the games in the sense of maybe I'll just, it feels less disposable, I guess. Like they're saying, you have that less of that. Well, he said the personal investment. I wonder if that's a big factor in it or not. Of people maybe trying out a game on Game Pass just for an hour and just be bouncing off, kind of like how we can off TV shows or movies on Netflix. Ooh. I don't know.
Yeah, I think there is an increased disposability. I think you see that with the free to play games taking over the mobile store. Yeah. I think you see it a little bit with Game Pass. You can certainly read it in Xbox reviews if you go to that part of the page when you see games that were on Game Pass. The people that didn't invest in it didn't know what it was. They tend to be harsher to games that release on Game Pass than they might otherwise be had they spend their own dollars on it. So I do think that there is evidence that there is a psychological disposability that comes with this kind of framework for getting game access. But I do think overall, even that is worth it because so many more people are getting the opportunity to play so many more things. And I think, especially on the smaller scale games, there's a real visibility problem across all these digital stores. And whether Game Pass was originally designed for this purpose or not, I think that curation is important. And I'm always excited to see the indie games that make it to that top line of the new Game Pass releases.
And you nailed it for me, Ho, because I think it's a combination for me. It's discoverability of things that I normally would not have paid much mind to in conjunction with where I am as a gamer. I think why Game Pass really works for me is because I'm tired of just only AAA games. I think a lot of the creativity comes from the indie scene and the AA scene. And when they get that level of shine and discoverability, and I check it out, I'm actually enjoying these experiences more than the bigger ones because I feel like they're taking more risk and they're doing different things. And that's why it works for me. And I'm just like, this is cool. I find myself in that pocket. I think we've even talked about, I'm kind of exhausted of everything is 100-hour, 80-hour, experience. And I get it. These games are getting bigger and everybody wants more, but I kind of like that, 15-hour or sometimes, 10-hour experience and I'm done. And that's where it satiates me, as a gamer. It's just my gaming habits right now at this stage of my life. I think that's
absolutely. The gaming development community has made completionists or even kind of completionists hate their lives, right? Like it is so hard to be a completionist gamer right now, to just experience everything in one of these games. And I'm so happy. I actually thought this the other day while I was playing it, that I'm going to beat Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii. Like, it's an ordeal to beat a Yakuza game, folks. Certainly modern ones, the most recent ones. And I'm going to beat that game. And that's almost a surprise to me. I'm going to beat it in the same month it comes out. It's crazy. And so I'm excited about that. And then also a little fearful of Assassin's Creed Shadows. I love the Assassin's Creed franchise. And that game is probably going to be 100 hours or more. Like Valhalla, I don't think has an ending. I know people have claimed to have seen it. I don't believe Valhalla has an ending.
I heard stories about that one. Yeah, I heard that game goes on. Oh,
it was too long.
Jesus.
I see, now Brad is sitting here telling me he beat Valhalla. I'm not sure I believe him.
Well,
I don't think he's lying right to my face.
But I did beat the campaign.
Jesus. Yeah, I heard that.
That was that kind of was like, all right, I'm good on Assassin's Creed for a long time now after I finished that game.
It took him the appropriate amount of time to get Shadows out because Valhalla saved you for a long time.
Fair enough.
Oh, I'm not even going back to Shadows. I tried Mirage and I was like, nah, I can't do it. I can't go back yet. I just can't do it, man. Maybe I'll pick up Shadows when it's like on sale in the future or something like that. But right now, I just can't. There's too much right now.
Too much. No, I hear you.
Speaking of Game Pass, just a PSA. Lies of P is going away this month. So the DLC's coming up. Check that game out. Lies of P is a great game.
Good luck getting good enough in that amount of time. But I like Lies of P a lot.
If you're curious about it, maybe give it a spin and see if you like it or not.
Exactly.
Okay, final writing here from Javin Mather. My dudes, while Avowed takes place in an existing game world from Pillars of Eternity, what's an existing world you'd like to see a game take place in, regardless of medium? I could see a game taking place in Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn world being really appealing. Characters drawn upon different elements they store inside themselves after ingesting them. The primary movement feature being pushing themselves off of any object or pulling them towards themselves. In a game, this kind of kinetic movement and flight of a sort could operate similar to how a character controls in Gravity Rush, but also bear in aspects of game physics that you'd have to very specifically use in environments and objects for movement. Perhaps a more advanced version of what Control did with its telekinetics. All right.
Mistborn is cool.
Yeah, I've heard about those books. I've never read them, but
Brandon Sanderson likes building a rule set as part of his world building. So he's a natural fit for things like video games and board games.
Yeah, there's rumors. He wanted to work with From Software, so we'll see if that happens in the future. Okay, but let's pick a game you'd want in the world of an IP. Could be a book, comic books, movie, TV show, anything.
It's a tough one. So like similar to Avowed, where there's like a Pillars universe and then it's like a spin-off kind of thing?
Yeah. It could even be like Marvel or something like that. Maybe like a superhero that's never had a game or something.
Neil Gaiman's on the outs, I know, for good reason, but I would really love a Sandman universe game.
Ooh. Yeah, I mean, similar. I'll go with a comic route. Obviously, I'm a huge Silver Surfer fan. There was a Silver Surfer game for the NES way back in the day.
Yeah, it sucks.
They're terrible. It was awful. And, I'm right now, all my hopes and dreams are tied to the MCU handling the Fantastic Four movie well. And as a result, if that's headed well, then my character is the precursor, to that. So we shall see. I would love a Silver Surfer guy. I'm a huge fan of that character. Very unique character. And,
Godspeed, Cog. I hope they treat the Fantastic Four right for you. But man, I do not have a lot of optimism.
I know. And then the rumors I've heard about how my character will be introduced was not encouraging, but I'm holding out hope that it's a timeline thing and that I will get the version of my character that I like in the current timeline. Yeah. So we will see.
I wish the best for you. I wish no one to have their IP destroyed in front of them.
I know. Phase 4 has not been kind.
Yeah. We need a new AAA Lord of the Rings game.
Ooh.
We need a good one. You know, not Gollum. We need a very nice AAA, high budget. Like if they did an open world, maybe like RPG, like narrative choice and all that kind of stuff, then Kingdom Come, but just Lord of the Rings IP. Could be awesome, man. Still a huge IP, but
a lot of potential.
I don't know. I don't know. Oh, who has the rights? Embracer Group has the rights to that. So
yeah, that's right. They're really working on Tales from the Shire, right?
Yeah. That's like an Animal Crossing game. No shade, but not necessarily what I'm looking for.
I like a cozy game. I don't love those early trailers. We'll see how it comes out.
Yeah, we'll see. But give me a huge RPG. Shout out to The Third Age, a turn-based RPG on PS2 for Lord of the Rings.
Ooh.
I don't remember if it was
Electronic Arts had its moment.
Yeah, man. But yeah, make a good one again. We need it. All right, boys, that's it. Another episode in the books. Thank you two for joining me.
Nice.
Yeah, man, it's a lot of fun.
We go, Hoeg, you do a bunch of stuff. Let them know where they can find you.
Well, I think the best place to find me is my YouTube channel, which is under Hoeg Law, where Virtual Legality, where we talk about games and law, lives, as well as Hangouts and Headlines, where we talk about the media and stories that are of interest to people and how those stories are reported, as well as sometimes business and law at the same time, because I'm only one person and they cross paths sometimes. But those shows are both on my YouTube channel. I'm doing about 2 episodes per week right now. A little bit less than my 12 or 13 per week that I was doing in 2022. But that also put me in the hospital. So I'm not going back there.
There we go.
So 2 episodes a week right now is my aim. I'm also on the Seasoned Gaming Bitcast every Sunday. So that stream is every week. And we talk about games. We were just on yesterday. And you can catch me there. That's broadcast on Hoeg Law. That's also broadcast on Seasoned Gaming. Or you can see me complaining about the Michigan Wolverines in football or basketball on the platform formerly known as Twitter at Hoeg Law.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And the Lions played
yes.
the Lions.
Well, the Lions had a lot to love this year until the very end there. But what are you going to do?
I feel you, brother. I feel you. It's good to see Virtual Legality in swing, man. It's cool to see. Always see you do your thing again.
And Cog, everyone knows you and loves you.
Yes.
Check you out here, of course, but also the Iron Lords podcast. That's every Sunday as well, right?
Yeah, every Sunday, 1 p.m. is the Lord's Day. Catch me begrudgingly being videotaped wearing Crocs to the amusement of our community for our Road to Tokyo movement. But yeah, it was fun. And it was good to see Sov make a cameo after he lost his dad. And again, shout out to everyone in the LSM family who sent their condolences. He's been going through a very tough time. And it was really cool to see it. He gave us a surprise. We didn't know he was still. We thought he was still in Puerto Rico doing the funeral thing, and he showed up. It was real emotional, so it was really cool to get him there. And then also catch me, in the realm of the Dukes to find this host, Mr. Matty Plays, talking everything Xbox and everything that's going on. His Xbox keeps us thoroughly entertained with all the things that they do. One thing about doing an Xbox podcast, you will have things to talk about.
That's right. Always content.
Oh man, I'll admit, it's funny. We're like, what is happening this week?
Yes, sir.
So check that out on Twitter at Lord Cognito. Usually talking similarly games, 49ers, Mets. Probably most things I'm talking about these days.
That's right. All right, everybody. Thank you for watching and listening. We appreciate it, and we'll see you next episode. Take care, everybody, and goodbye. Summon Sign is a product of Last Stand Media and Colin's Last Stand LLC and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show is written and hosted by me, Brad Ellis. The show is produced by Dustin Furman. All of Last Stand's theme music is by Ramon Narvaez. Summon Sign, along with the rest of Last Stand's media shows, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest tier, and we are grateful for your kind contribution and generosity to our independent endeavor. Thank you.